Chapter 672. In general, Ho Chin-yuhan was still a relatively traditional woman in her thinking. Although women in the new era had become independent and self-reliant, and they even began to flaunt the equality of men and women. But she still felt that the experience at this moment was too avant-garde for her. The music that kept exploding in this dance hall was like a magic bell that could disturb people's thoughts. This place had the magic power to make women fall. After staying for a moment, Ho Chin-yuhan already felt dizzy and flustered. Her heart was extremely resistant to everything in this place, and she instinctively took 2 steps back. Mrs. Zhang, Mrs. Li, thank you for your kindness, Ho Chin-yuhan said anxiously. However, I'm afraid I'm not suitable for this place. I'll go back first. Mrs. Zhang seemed to have known that Ho Chin-yuhan would say this. At this time, she said with a smile, Teacher Ho Chun, it's okay. I know what you're thinking because I've been like that too. In the beginning, I was also very unwilling to do so. But now, she grabbed Ho Chin-yuhan's arm, but she looked at the fanaticism in the dance hall and said with fascination, people are just men and women. They also need to enjoy themselves, right? How are we, women, lacking in any way? Why do we have to stay at home and take care of our husband and children when they can have fun while we can't? You say that if men know how to cherish it, then it's fine. If they don't know how to cherish it and still mess around outside, then we women deserve to suffer for a lifetime. Mrs. Zhang, I understand your kindness. Ho Chin-yuhan shook her head, but I can't get past myself. So, let's end today's matter here. I'll pretend that I didn't come here. I promise I will never say anything. Ho Chin-yuhan had an idea that these rich ladies brought her to this kind of place this time. If she didn't become one of them, they wouldn't feel at ease, even if she made such a promise at this time. Mrs. Zhang frowned, but Ho Chin-yuhan took the opportunity to break free from Mrs. Zhang's hand and quickly turned to leave. But at this time, Mrs. Li behind her said coldly, Teacher, can you guarantee that your husband didn't play with girls behind her back? Men sometimes can't control themselves, right? Ho Chin-yuhan was stunned. She also had times when she was lonely and uncomfortable. The days were so long, but it was no different from being alone in an empty room. Which woman would feel good? Unless she was the type who was born with a big head. Obviously, she wasn't that type. Can you guarantee your own husband? Mrs. Li's words were like a needle that pierced into the most painful part of Ho Chin-yuhan's heart. She knew better than anyone that it was not that Zhu Maolin couldn't do it. He just didn't respond to her, and everything else was normal. If that was the case, would he be able to stand it when facing other women? How about this? Mrs. Li stepped forward at this time, took Ho Chin-yuhan's hand, and said pleasantly, Teacher, we won't force you. However, at the very least, you shouldn't be such a wet blanket and leave just like that. How about this? We won't help you with anything. You can just watch from the side. Of course, if you're interested, we welcome you to join us at any time. Teacher, at the very least, we've bought so many lessons for you. You can't possibly embarrass us like this, right? I don't drink, and you don't have to find someone to feed me. Ho Chin-yuhan had to reluctantly agree. Most of the income of the pottery art classroom did come from these rich wives. I'll just sit here and do nothing. Otherwise, I'm sorry. At most, I will refund the tuition fee to you. Okay, as long as you stay. Everything else is negotiable. Mrs. Li squinted her eyes and smiled. Ho Chin-yuhan said at this time, then, I want to go to the bathroom first to calm down. I'm flustered. Mrs. Zhang pointed in the direction. Okay, just over there. We are at table 13. You can come over later. Just get used to it. I was like this at the beginning. Take your time. Ho Chin-yuhan lowered her head and didn't dare to look at the men who were showing off on the stage. She hurriedly walked toward the bathroom without saying a word. Mrs. Li said with interest at this time, Teacher Ho Chun is still too pure. Wait a while. Let's entertain her well. Since she is here, she has to play. Mrs. Zhang also chuckled. She winked at the third lady and said, Ask Ali to get some delicious drinks later. Just remember not to have any alcohol. Okay, watch me. The wife said happily, There's still some leftovers from last time. It just happens to be useful. When the 3 wives were discussing the following matters, Ho Chin-yuhan, who walked all the way into the bathroom, suddenly took advantage of the dim lights and the crowd in the disco. She suddenly turned a corner and quietly slipped to the door on the other side. There was another door inside, which seemed to lead to somewhere else. But Ho Chin Yuhan just wanted to get rid of these rich wives, so she pretended to agree. As for whether they wanted to quit the class later, it was up to them. Since they were not on the same side, why should they get together? Just at this time, the door had just opened, and a woman dressed coquettishly walked in with a sullen face. Ho Chin Yuhan lowered her head, walked directly past her, and walked into the place behind the door. There were also two men guarding outside the door, but they didn't seem to be surprised by Ho Chin Yuhan's appearance. Instead, they smiled and respectfully made an inviting gesture. Ho Chin Yuhan then realized why the two men didn't have any intention of stopping her at all. Because behind this door, there was also a huge room. This was a casino. It was brightly lit. Men and women were gathered in this place. They were at different gambling tables and were shouting passionately. The two gatekeepers probably thought that they had played enough in the dance hall outside, so they came here to play a few rounds. But at least the casino was better than the disco behind the door. At least the lights here made her feel more comfortable. "Miss, is this your first time here?" One of the men in front of the door asked politely at this time. Ho Chin Yuhan nodded slightly cautiously. "The place to exchange chips is over there." The man smiled and said, "The minimum bet is 10,000, and there is no upper limit. Please help yourself." "There is no upper limit." Ho Chin Yuhan still nodded. Those who come to this club to play are probably either rich or noble. The few rich ladies, students, who were probably having a good time outside, were probably just average here. The casino is better than the demon's place outside. Ho Chin Yuhan comforted herself like this, but she had a funny feeling. Her experience today had indeed completely changed her unchanging life in the past. She walked into the crowd, but she saw that there were many different doors in the casino. This time she did not dare to barge in, for fear that there would be some strange things behind these doors. Among other things, when one of the doors opened at this time, she saw a pot-bellied man walking in with two girls in revealing clothes. Ho Chin Yuhan probably knew what was on the other side of the door. "Again, I won again. What kind of luck is this? This guy is really strange. After gambling for so long, I have never seen anyone lose." There was a sudden burst of excitement in the crowd. Ho Chin Yuhan subconsciously looked over at this time, but she saw a lot of men and women around a gambling table at this moment. This should be something called baccarat, right? Ho Chin Yuhan remembered that she had seen something similar on the internet before, but she couldn't be sure. At this gambling table, the dealer wiped the sweat on his forehead vigorously at this time. He was looking at a gambler sitting in front of him, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. He was wearing sportswear and a hood that came with the clothes. In front of this man, there were a lot of chips stacked up. At this time, the man directly pushed out all the chips in front of him and then waited for the dealer to deal. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Ho Chin Yuhan didn't know how much money these chips represented. But in this place where the starting bet was 10,000 and there was no upper limit, it could make these rich and noble people show such expressions. This man in sportswear bet this time. "I'm afraid I won't be able to earn it in my lifetime, right?" She felt that she and this man, who gambled heavily, were probably people from two different worlds. "I don't know if he can win." Ho Chin Yuhan subconsciously walked over curiously, intending to see the result. Yin 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 yin. Chapter 673. In one of the rooms of this luxurious hotel, there were a lot of monitoring equipment. Now, almost all of these monitoring equipment were focused on a table on the basement floor. It was not an exaggeration to say that there were no blind spots in the room. "Ajay, what do you think? Is this guy cheating?" The man who spoke was less than 40 years old. He was in charge of the business on the basement's second floor. At this time, the person in charge was frowning. This was because the gambler on the table had already won more than 100 million in a short period of time. And this round was even more terrifying. He had actually bet all of it at once. No, absolutely not. The man named Ajay was about 30 years old. Ajay was a professional gambler himself. He was quite legendary. Later, he was valued by the group behind this hotel and was hired as a technical consultant of the casino. To put it bluntly, He was specialized in catching gamblers who wanted to fish in troubled waters in the casino. No, the middle-aged person in charge frowned even more. He didn't lose, even once? Impossible. At this point, Ajay was also a little uncertain. He looked a little worried and frowned. To be honest, I really don't think so. My eyes can't be wrong. You see, we have already used the slow-motion camera. We didn't see any abnormality at all, unless his hand speed is faster than the camera, but this is impossible. Maybe he is the kind of person who has strong luck. Strong luck? Just by luck? The manager was surprised. Obviously, he didn't believe such a statement. No matter how lucky a person was, it was impossible to not win even once. Yeah, I also find it hard to believe. Ajay sighed. In the world of gamblers, this kind of strong luck is also a legend. I remember my master once told me that he had met such a person. This person didn't know any gambling skills. He didn't even play poker. But under the fair card draw, he won 10 times in a row. My master said that we're not afraid of anyone, but we are most afraid of this kind of lucky guy. I think the one in the gambling hall may be a guy with strong luck. But I still don't believe that a person's luck can be so good. The middle-aged person in charge insisted on his own opinion. This underground gambling hall was a brand. Although no gambling hall in the country could get a legal license, since it could be opened, there were naturally other ways. Because they were in the business of branding, they naturally wouldn't use those low-level methods to make a fuss at the gambling table. Instead, they hired experienced veterans to act as the dealer or dealer at each table. It was precisely because of such persistence that there were so many rich people from the city and even from other places gathered here. The unlimited betting method also meant that the real boss of this casino had extremely terrifying financial resources. This was the reason why the customers of this underground gambling hall were able to relax and enjoy themselves here. At this time, a man quickly walked into the room, looked at the middle-aged man, and said, "Director Feng, we found out." This person was called Lu Zixing. He was originally the young master of the Tianyuan Corporation. After the previous boss passed away, Lu Zixing inherited the corporation. He has a clean background and is not a professional gambler. Heavenly fate? Never heard of it. Director Feng shook his head. Oh, this company mainly deals in jewelry and antiques. The man quickly said, "It's not big, but it's not small either. It's quite famous in the circle." And what else? I've checked. This Lu Zixing was kicked out of the company by his mother a few days ago. All of his shares were gone, and he was even kicked out of the house. The man frowned and said, "I heard that it's because he has always been fond of gambling, right? This Lu Zixing has always liked to gamble. I don't know how much he owes outside. I heard the news that he didn't pay back the money at Black Panther's place. Now, everyone outside is looking for him. His mother kicked him out of the house. She even took away all of his shares." Director Feng was stunned and subconsciously said, "His mother? Is she his stepmother?" "She's his biological mother, and this Lu Zixing is the only son." The man also had some doubts. "I heard that the Lu family used to spoil Lu Zixing very much. I don't know why she suddenly turned against him. I think she was too disappointed in him." "He won," Ajay suddenly said at this time. Director Feng suddenly turned around and looked at the screen on the monitor. This guy had just bet all, and now he won again. The chips on the gambling table were not enough. He had to ask the staff to bring a plate of chips from the exchange office. As for the dealer at the gambling table, his face was pale at this time. He was sweating profusely and looked at the camera. "It's no good. Along has completely lost his confidence. He will only keep losing like this." Ajay said decisively at this time, "Director Feng, this guy's luck is too horrible at this time. It's too strange. I suggest that you talk to him in private." "Wait, let me make a call and ask." Director Feng shook his head at this time and walked quickly to a small room in the monitoring room. He held the phone, took a deep breath, and then cleared his throat. When the phone was connected, he said respectfully, "Third Miss, I'm Feng Shan. There's something I want you to know. Go ahead, but be quick. I'm going to take old Master Zheng to Fragrant Mountain to see the snow." Feng Shan quickly explained the situation. The woman on the other side of the phone was silent for a while, and then said indifferently, "If he is really a lucky person, his luck will always run out. Don't stop. If he wants to gamble, let him gamble. If he is smart, he will know when to stop. You can also take this opportunity to make a name for yourself. If you can attract more customers with a loss of 1 billion, then it's a profit. I have just entered this area, and I need a reputation in the circle. Only this third miss would have the courage to casually throw away a few billion yuan without feeling any heartache. But Feng Shan's heart was beating wildly when he heard that. But he didn't dare to say anything, even if he was the person in charge of this place. There were more than a dozen people like him all over the country. This hotel club was not the only one. Then I know what to do. Third Mississippi, Feng Shan didn't dare to say more at this time, and quickly agreed. At this time, the third miss suddenly said, "Since you took the initiative to call me, then report it to me. What has my second brother been doing recently?" Third miss, second young master has been living in seclusion recently. Feng Shan hurriedly said, "I don't see him having any contact with Ms. Zhang, and his current business is temporarily managed by Chang Yun. Recently, he seems to be supporting a small band. Continue to pay attention. I won't say more." Yes, yes. Feng Shan covered the phone with his hand and nodded, and then hurriedly said, "Third miss, please send my regards to old master's health." Got it. In the capital, it was snowing. Under the fluttering snowflakes, in a manner, a young woman wearing a mink fur coat looked into the distance. "Good luck." She smiled faintly, and then tightened her coat before turning around. Not far away, two old men were drinking tea, watching the snow and playing chess in the pavilion of the manor. "Have you finished your business?" One of the old men shook his head and looked at the young woman, smiling faintly. "Luo, if you have something to do, just go. Old Luo will accompany me here." Third miss. Luo sat down and poured tea for the two old men. "With Grandpa Luo's care, of course I won't worry. But I have to fly to Los Angeles next week, and can only come back before the new year. Grandpa, won't you let me spend more time with you? You little girl." "Grandpa," old Master Zhong chuckled, "you're the most clingy one among your brothers." Luo faintly said, "Big brother and second brother will marry someone and stay at home. But Luo will eventually marry someone." The other old man on the side. Grandpa Luo smiled and continued, "It's that person's fortune to marry third Mississippi. If he dares to not let you go back to your parents' home, I, Grandpa Luo, will whip him." "Grandpa Luo, you're making fun of me again." Luo coquettishly winked. "If you're like this, who dares to marry me? If anyone dares to refuse, I'll whip them too." Luo looked at old Master Zhong and smiled calmly. "Grandpa, our old commander is probably too bored after retirement. There's no soldier for him to train. Now he wants to manage me." Old Master Zhong chuckled. Suddenly, a cold wind blew and the snow became heavier. Old Master Zhong stood up, full of energy. "What a heavy snow." Grandpa Luo said, "Yes. Timely snow promises a bumper harvest." Luo softly agreed. "Good luck." Feng Shan walked out quickly. Jie quickly went up to him. Feng Shan said directly, "Invite him to the VIP room. You go down and bet with him." "Okay." Ajay did not hesitate and directly nodded. "I'll go prepare right away." They hired him with a high salary. If he hesitated at this time, wouldn't it mean that he was just a good-for-nothing with an undeserved reputation? After Ajay left, the man who first inquired about the information quietly asked Feng Shan in a low voice, "Director, this Lu Zixing won so much money from us. Do you think we should—" "No, not this time." Feng Shan waved his hand. "It's a good thing for this kid. We don't touch him and even let him leave safely. Only then will people trust us. We have just started in this place. If we mess around just because a customer won money, who will dare to come here in the future? Those rich people outside are not stupid." "I know, this kid is lucky." The man nodded and then sighed. "He's really lucky." But Feng Shan suddenly thought of something and sneered. "If we don't touch him here, we won't do it ourselves in the future. But other things are not related to us. You just said that he lost a lot in that small place, Black Panther, right? I know what to do. If Lu Zixing could even win against Jie, he would spit it all back in another way." In front of the baccarat table, the dealer had wiped his cold sweat again and again with his sleeves. His sleeves had long been soaked. To be honest, Even if he was a veteran with many years of experience and had worked in many different formal casinos, he had never lost so much. He felt that after today, he was afraid that he would lose his job. This guy was simply like a devil. Because this guy with strong luck was so terrifying, now whatever he bought, those next to him had already begun to bet. The dealer's pressure was unprecedentedly huge. Deal the cards. Once again, he pushed out all the chips in front of him. At this time, this man wearing ordinary sportswear and a hat. Lu Zixing said with a calm expression. The dealer felt that his hand that was holding the cards was trembling. At this moment, his shoulder was heavy. He subconsciously turned back and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He was about to speak. "Let me do it," Ajay ordered casually at this time. Only then did the Zhuang family feel as if they had been granted amnesty. Ajay looked at Lu Zixing at this time and smiled slightly. "Mr. Lu, it's too noisy here. If you don't mind, why don't you come to our VIP room to play? The conditions over there are better." Lu Zixing shook his head and said indifferently, "I think it's quite good here. Anyway, you can bet freely here, and there's no limit. So, it's the same everywhere. I like the atmosphere of this hall more. More people, more lively." Lu Zixing was not surprised that the other side called out his surname. Such a big gambling hall. If he didn't have this ability, he wouldn't have opened it. In that case, we'll do as Mr. Lu said. Ajay still had a graceful appearance. Then, Ajay looked at the original gamblers at the table and suddenly said, "Everyone, I want to bet with Mr. Lu alone. I wonder if he can give me a chance? Of course, to express my apology, I'll let these guests at the table exchange chips below 20 million with 30% discount. Is that okay?" "Yes, please." The guests at the table looked at each other and nodded very tactfully. They directly got up and left. As people who had been in this kind of place all year round, they could see that the rules of this casino were very good. The one who didn't know the rules was this crazy guy. Doesn't he know how to restrain himself? Therefore, in front of this baccarat table, there was a circle of people. The other gambling tables had become deserted. "I'll only bet on the last 3 games." Seeing that Lu Zixing had walked to the opposite side of him, Lu Zixing suddenly said something. "No problem." Ajay nodded. "Mr. Lu's luck today is too good. If you don't stop, we will go bankrupt. Thank you so much for your mercy, Mr. Lu." Such an attitude made everyone feel a little more comfortable. "Then let's deal." Lu Zixing nodded and didn't talk nonsense. In the last 3 games, he had already expressed his intention to give in. Jess smiled and said, don't worry. Mr. Lu, why don't we change the gambling method to play?" Lu Zixing frowned. "Change the gambling method? How?" Ajay said seriously, "Mr. Lu, we are not only gambling with money, but also gambling with luck. Your luck today is too good. I'm not afraid of evil, so I want to gamble with you. So, both of us don't do it personally, and then randomly choose 2 people in this gambling hall to take the cards on behalf of you and me. Of course, to show fairness, these 2 people will be chosen by Mr. Lu personally. How about it? Then who will be the dealer?" Lu Zixing said indifferently. "No dealer," Ajay said indifferently. "Just a deck of cards. 2 people will draw. Whoever has a bigger card wins." "Okay." Lu Zixing nodded, and then his eyes quickly swept across everyone in front of him. He said in a clear voice, "Who is willing to gamble on behalf of the 2 of us? 1 million per service fee." Suddenly, many people around raised their hands. They belonged to the staff who worked in the other places on both sides of the gambling hall, those girls and boys. "You take his place." Lu Zixing casually pointed at a man who looked like a duck, then pointed with his finger, "You take my place." "Me?" Chapter 674. When Zhu Maolin came back from the outside, he found that little Lu was not in the booth. The induction cooker was turned off, and the soup base was no longer hot. Maybe she just went to the bathroom or something. Zhu Maolin subconsciously had such an idea. He shook his head and glanced at what he had just bought in his hand. It was a small cake bought from a nearby bakery. But after waiting for a while, Zhu Maolin still didn't see little Lu come back. He couldn't help but feel a little wrong. He simply called the department head over. "Has my friend who was working part-time here already left?" "Ah, I remember now. The minister said apologetically, "I'm sorry. I was so busy that I didn't notice that Mr. Zhu came back. This is the case. Just now, your friend hurriedly told me that she had something to do and had to leave first. She couldn't wait for you, so she asked me to let you know." "Really?" Zhu Maolin nodded and said coldly, "You just said that she was in a hurry. It seems—" The minister thought for a while and then said, "It seems that there is something urgent at home. I don't know, but from the looks of it, he seems to be in a hurry. I guess something really happened. And I got it." Zhu Maolin nodded and then said directly, "Then, let's settle the bill. Welcome next time." After leaving the hot pot restaurant, Zhu Maolin glanced at the time. At this time, she might have gone home. Go back and make a decision early. He told himself so. Then, after picking up the car from the parking lot, Zhu Maolin remembered the words of the minister of the hot pot restaurant. He thought for a while and picked up the phone. "Hello, boy. Help me check the phone number of the model who shot the short film for us last time. The one named Little Lou. Just send it to my mobile phone later." As two parties who knew each other, it should be natural to greet each other a little, right? Soon after, the boy sent Little Lou's mobile phone number. After dialing all the numbers, he seemed to hesitate. "She seems to be in a hurry, right? There's an emergency at home or something. Today is actually my birthday. Really, look if you don't believe me." He finally pressed the dialing button and put the phone to his ear. "Sorry, the user you dialed is temporarily unavailable. Her home seems to be in this direction." The engine started. In Ho Chin Yuhan's opinion, this should be something that could be rejected. Ho Chin Yuhan thought, this man in sportswear shouldn't be the kind of person who pesters others. As for me, I have no reason to participate in such a ridiculous bet. As for the 1 million, she thought about it, and to be honest, she was indeed tempted. It was just that this place gave her a bad feeling. In this place full of desire and seething desire, her spirit had never relaxed. Ho Chin Yuhan shook her head. When she was about to refuse, she saw that a few rich ladies outside the crowd had already walked in. It seemed that they had discovered her. At this moment, they were walking over with unpleasant expressions. Ho Chin Yuhan knew she was in trouble. These rich ladies obviously didn't intend to let her off easily, especially after she quietly slipped away with the excuse of going to the bathroom. At this time, the other young and handsome man chosen by Lu Zixing couldn't wait to walk to AJ's side at the gambling table. His face was full of anticipation. "That's right. As long as you gamble for 3 rounds, you don't have to pay for it. You just have to draw the cards on behalf of others, and you can get a reward of 1 million. Lu Zixing had directly thrown out 1 million worth of chips in front of him. 1 million. Even if you're lucky, you have to let those old and ugly rich ladies play for a few months to earn it. Can I really take it?" But he was still a little worried. This Ajay was the consultant of the casino. It would be strange if he said he was not worried. Ajay said indifferently at this time, "It's okay. Since Mr. Liu rewarded you, you can take it. Don't worry, the casino won't take your tip." 1 million tip. He, who was in the service industry, knew that he and this man, who was only 10 years older than him, were people from 2 different worlds. Suddenly, 1 million in front of him didn't seem to be so attractive. After all, he was just a prostitute. At this time, Ho Chin Yuhan also walked to Lu Zixing hesitantly. Lu Zixing glanced at her briefly and didn't say anything. He did the same and directly gave her 1 million chips. Ho Chin Yuhan suddenly shook her head and whispered, "I don't want this money. Can you take me away from this place later?" Lu Zixing was taken aback. There are people who don't want money. This was the first time he encountered it. But he was not a completely stupid person, especially after he asked the mysterious boss for a bet with great courage in a desperate situation. He didn't realize that some things about him had already changed. He noticed that the woman in front of him seemed to have guessed something and looked back frequently. She didn't look like a lady who worked here, nor did she look like a rich person. Her clothes were simple and elegant, but not noble. "Are you in trouble?" Lu Zixing said indifferently. I was dragged here." Ho Chin Yuhan nodded and stammered, I don't like this place." "Okay." Lu Zixing nodded. "I said I'll give you 1 million. I won't take back what I said. It doesn't matter if I take you away, as long as you draw the cards for me." Ho Chin Yuhan still had scruples. "But what if I lose?" I don't have so much money to compensate you. The chips on this table were probably impossible for her to earn in 10 lifetimes. She didn't dare to easily get involved in this gamble, unless the other party could give her enough guarantee. I will never lose. Lu Zixing's eyes were sharp at this time, especially today, especially when it comes to gambling. Don't worry. Even if I lose, I won't let you pay me half a penny. So many people here can testify. If you are still worried, it doesn't matter if you write a certificate now. Lu Zixing had raised his voice for the rest of the words so that the people around him could hear it clearly. Ajay across the table was even more impressed at this time. Mr. Lu is so courageous. After 3 rounds, regardless of winning or losing, I, Ajay, am willing to make friends with you. Okay, I will also make friends with you. Lu Zixing nodded. At this time, the staff sent a brand new deck of unopened poker cards and opened it on the spot. Ajay smiled at this time and said, Mr. Lu, please check the cards. There's no need. Lu Zixing shook his head. If you play tricks here, no one will be willing to come again in the future. I believe that if you want to do this for a long time, you won't destroy the Great Wall. Then let's start. Ajay nodded, then shuffled a brand new deck of Parker's cards skillfully and put it in front of Lu Zixing. Mr. Lu, you can cut the cards. He didn't check it just now, but this time, Lu Zixing cut the cards himself. Of course, his skills were not as good as Ajay's, but he was still a qualified gambler. Director, is it okay for Ajay to gamble like this? If he doesn't play himself, then? Feng Shan, the monitoring room, frowned at this time and said seriously, he should have his own plans. Ajay is the disciple of the god of gamblers. He won't mess around. I think the reason why he did this is to interrupt Lu Zixing's luck. Interrupt luck? Feng Shan nodded and said, humans have 3 bad days and 6 good days. This thing sounds mysterious, but this thing on the gambling table is so strange. No one can say for sure. Only those true gamblers would have some feelings for their own luck. I also heard it from some of the older seniors. For example, this Lu Zixing is now lucky, so he shouldn't leave his position easily. You see, he would rather gamble in the hall than move his position just now. I'm afraid this is the reason, because this is his financial position. However, if it's borrowed from others, then it's hard to say. Once his luck is interrupted or he loses once, then it's no longer scary. If someone else replaces it, then it's someone else's luck. It's starting. In the hall, Lu Zixing was the first to place a bet. This time, he still pushed out all the chips without hesitation. This kind of courage to bet all his chips every time was amazing. Some people seem to have recognized him. After all, such a gambler would always know some people in the city circle. This guy seems to have changed today. I haven't seen such madness before. I heard that he was driven out of the house by his mother and cut off the relationship. Could this be a desperate counterattack? He already has almost 300 million on hand. If he stops now, although it's not as good as before, at least he has the capital to make a comeback. This Lu Zixing still doesn't know how to judge the situation. Who knows? Anyway, I heard that Black Panther is looking for him crazily. Maybe he is waiting outside the hotel for him to come out. Shoo! It's starting. Don't be noisy. In front of a deck of cards spread out in an arc, Ho Chin Yuhan stood a little unsteadily. Her palms were full of cold sweat. The young man who was also chosen on the opposite side also swallowed his saliva at this time. His lips were a little pale. The first game was almost 300 million. Ho Chin Yuhan and her opponent were just ordinary people after all. Maybe it's fate. The man on the opposite side probably had a professional instinct to please women. Although he was flustered at this time, he at least calmed down and smiled slightly. The fate that we can't resist. This may be just a small time in their lives for them, but for us, we may not encounter it in our lives. I think the magic of fate is probably here. We don't know what will happen in the next second, but because of this, the future seems to be promising, right? Promising future fate. Suddenly, Ho Chin Yuhan thought of those flower cards that she kept close to her body. Those flower cards that represented her preciousness and could be used to buy things that she wanted and changed her life. Is this also considered fate? She didn't know that it took a lot of courage to draw such a card in front of her. Didn't it take crazy determination to choose one from those flower cards? Her eyes were scattered. Although the opponent said some gentle words, he didn't move. Obviously, he didn't intend to draw first. It was really quite unique in this place. They could please all women meticulously, but they were always ruthless. Ho Chin Yuhan took a deep breath, stretched out her hand, and pulled out a 5 of diamonds, a card that wasn't very promising. In this card draw, based on the number of points, an A was only 1 point. If she let go of a 5, that was a point. It was really a very bad number. From the looks of everyone's expressions and eyes, Ho Chin Yuhan knew that she was probably the real deal. She subconsciously glanced at the man who let her draw the card and found that he was still calm at this time. At least he looked very calm. Is he really not worried? Or is it that even if he loses so much money at one time, he doesn't care at all? Then it's my turn. The opponent smiled slightly at this time. The opponent drew a 5 of diamonds, so he had a much higher chance of winning. He also quietly glanced at the technical consultant, Ajay, and found that the other party didn't look at him at all. From the beginning, AJ's eyes never left Lu Zixing for a moment. I'll draw. The man took a deep breath. Since the technical consultant didn't give him any indication, he could only bite the bullet and draw a card from these poker cards. It was just that unlike a complete layman like Ho Chin Yuhan, this guy pressed the card on the table and pried open its edge bit by bit. He was almost lying on the gambling table, shouting something that Ho Chin Yuhan couldn't understand. Something about whether there was an edge or not. The people around also shouted in unison at this moment, as if they were possessed. It's scary, right? The casino is like this. It can make people obsessed. Lu Zixing said indifferently at this time, look at the people here. They're all forgetful. Even if you ask them who their mother is now, I'm afraid some people can't say it. Ho Chin Yuhan was startled. At this time, this person was still not anxious at all. He actually discussed this kind of thing with her, but you? Lu Zixing said, I hate this place very much. I hate it more than ever. Look at the people around here. Every time I look at them, I feel uncomfortable. They are so ridiculous, so stupid, they don't know how to cherish. Then why are you still here? Ho Chin Yuhan frowned. I have a reason why I have to come. Lu Zixing stood up, and there's also a reason why I have to win. Okay, I won. You can get ready to draw the second round. Win. I won. Ho Chin Yuhan turned around in amazement and saw that the man's face was pale at this time. His palms were trembling slightly. He looked at the poker card in his hand in horror. It seemed that he couldn't stand still. A spade 4. No matter how big the spade was, it couldn't win the smallest diamond just because of the 4 and 5. Go, consultant. The man shouted in a panic. Ajay was still calm at this time. He waved his hand and said, give this Mr. Lu the chips. Pay as much as you bet. Get ready for the second round. Give me the cards. It was another new set of unopened cards. Ajay still asked Lu Zixing if he wanted to check the cards. Chapter 675. The huge gamble had been impacting everyone's nerves again and again, making most people blush and their hearts beat wildly. Unexpectedly, in the second round, Lu Zixing acted out of character and actually placed the lowest chip. Quit while you're ahead. No, if you really know how to quit while you're ahead, you shouldn't have one so much at the beginning. Then, what's the point of giving in at this time? This kind of behavior was probably completely infuriating to the gambling hall. 10,000. Ajay looked at Lu Zixing, seemingly wanting to confirm it again. Lu Zixing didn't hesitate at all. He just nodded simply, then said coldly, last time, my representative drew first. This time, it's your turn. This is fair. Okay. Ajay smiled slightly. His representative. Under AJ's signal, the representative could only bite the bullet and start to draw cards again. This time, even if he lost, he would only lose 10,000. He didn't seem to have any psychological pressure. *T. In the last round, he had already lost nearly 300 million yuan from his hands. At this time, his heart was completely broken down. Originally, he thought that this 1 million labor fee was easy to earn. He thought that since he represented Ajay, the consultant of the gambling hall, this wave was definitely in the bag. However, he didn't expect to die before he could win. He lost the first round. He seemed to have seen his future destiny. Although he wouldn't be held accountable, such words would be said. After this time, he would not be able to get away from the background of this hotel club. He would need to work for a lifetime. That was, he would be played by all kinds of women. He had completely broken down. He thought that he had to win this round no matter what. Even if he won, he couldn't win back so much money, but at least he could still let the gambling hall live on with his face. He closed his eyes and suddenly drew cards. Then, he slammed the poker cards on the gambling table. He didn't dare to look, but only dared to listen to the reactions of the people around him. He heard subtle discussions and surprised voices. He couldn't help but open his eyes nervously. When he saw the card he drew, he slumped directly on the chair. 2 of diamonds. It's over. The bet was only 10,000. This round was not a matter of money, but a matter of face. The male representative's face turned pale as he looked at Ajay in horror. He clearly saw AJ's eyebrows twitch slightly. This time it was really over. He didn't even have the strength to stand up. Then is it my turn to draw a card? Ho Chin Yuhan looked at Lu Zixing uneasily. At this time, Lu Zixing suddenly said, "Go and draw the first card on the left." Ho Chin Yuhan was stunned. Then she remembered that although both sides asked their representatives to draw cards, they didn't specify at the beginning that they were not allowed to take the initiative to ask their representatives to draw cards. The casino consultant on the opposite side seemed to have acquiesced and didn't object. Ho Chin Yuhan wasn't so nervous. Even if she didn't know how to gamble, she still knew how to differentiate between big and small. The other party had a 2 of diamonds. Among the remaining dozens of cards, she would only lose with 4 cards. It was simply a situation where she could win at will. Lu Zixing probably picked a card casually for her because of this, right? Ho Chin Yuhan nodded, directly drew the first card on the left, and then simply opened it. Ace of clubs. I actually lost? Damn it. F asterisk. I actually won? The male representative jumped up in disbelief at this time. Everyone was surprised by such an unbelievable situation. Only AJ's gaze was dignified. Lu Zixing seized the time and directly threw out another 10,000 chips to start the final third game. He didn't give everyone time to react at all. Ace of clubs. 4. The male representative drew a card for the third time. It was another very small point. He still completely collapsed. His eyes were red, and he was so aggrieved that he almost wanted to cry. Lu Zixing looked at Ho Chin Yuhan at this time, the second card on the right. Ho Chin Yuhan drew again. Ace of spades, the third game, she lost again. Okay, the last 3 games have been finished. Lu Zixing stood up at this time, looked at Ajay, and asked, "Can I exchange it for cash now?" Of course you can. It was not Ajay who answered, but a middle-aged man who walked quickly with a smile. Only a few people at the scene knew that this middle-aged man was the real boss of this casino. But among these few people, only 1 or 2 people knew that Feng Shan was only working for others. Behind him, there were more terrifying adults. Feng Shan smiled slightly at this time. However, I can't provide Mr. Lu with so much cash. I can only transfer or check. I don't know which one Mr. Lu wants. Let's split 2 checks. Lu Zixing said calmly. One is 89,500,000, and the other, you can put it all into this account. He wrote down an account number and handed it directly to Feng Shan. Okay. Feng Shan still smiled faintly. Mr. Lu might as well wait in our VIP room for a while. No need. I'll just wait here. Lu Zixing still sat in his original position. Please wait for a moment. Feng Shan didn't say much. He nodded and left with Ajay. However, no one took the initiative to approach Lu Zixing at this time. Even those who knew him avoided him at this time, even if he was about to have nearly 600 million in cash. Could it be a show made by this casino? A boss who didn't know but liked conspiracy theories. It's hard to say. You don't know about this hotel, but behind it, there's no need. A small leader of the Ministry of Land and Resources knew a little about the situation, but not much. Tell me about it. A curious, rich young master. 600 million seems to be a lot for us, but for behind this casino, it's just a drop in the ocean. A rich businessman from outside the province who knew more and just came here to inspect the market. The discussion was still going on, but it seemed that it was difficult to unify a result in the end. Then, They could only wait for the follow-up news from Lu Zixing. Anyway, he was also a member of the circle. Someone would know something sooner or later. Feng Shan was asking his property to prepare the check. At this time, he looked at Ajay and asked, "Has his good luck been interrupted?" Obviously, he was more concerned about this kind of evil thing. Ajay shook his head and said with a somewhat complicated expression, "To be honest, it hasn't been interrupted. Director Feng, I'm sorry this time. I'll pay the 300 million that he lost to the casino, but it will take some time. The gambling competition in Las Vegas will start in 2 months. I have to wait. There's no hurry." Feng Shan shook his head and said puzzledly, "You said it hasn't been interrupted, but didn't he lose the last 2 games? What if he lost on purpose?" Ajay said suddenly. "You mean he lost on purpose?" Feng Shan was stunned. He doesn't know how to gamble, and he asked someone else to do it. How is that possible? Ajay sighed and exclaimed, "Director Feng, it's not only good luck to win. Real good luck is getting what you want. If you want to win, you win. If you want to lose, you lose." Feng Shan felt that it made sense. Looking at Lu Zixing's calm expression, he became more convinced. Sure enough, the world is big and there are all kinds of strange things. This guy, we have to be careful in the future. Well, the check is ready. You can send it over. I still have something to follow up on. Ajay nodded, took the check, pushed the door, and left. A moment later, another man came to Feng Shan's side and whispered, "Black Panther's people are on their way. I guess they'll stop Lu Zixing outside." "No one found out, right?" Feng Shan asked indifferently. "No, I asked one of the security guards in the casino to spread the news. Originally, Black Panther's people were looking for Lu Zixing everywhere and even put a bounty on him, so they shouldn't think that we deliberately spread the news. Besides, Lu Zixing is so high profile today. Even if we don't say anything, Black Panther will definitely know." "Okay," Feng Shan smiled. "Then let's wait and watch the show. However, if Black Panther dares to directly take him at the door, you can make a move." "Director, are we still going to help him?" Feng Shan said indifferently. "The rules of the casino will let the guests leave safely. At least within our range. It's absolutely safe, understand?" The man nodded and said seriously, "Black people can't come in, white people can't come in, and they can't take people in our sight." "I understand. But still be as careful as possible. If you can avoid conflict, try not to." Feng Shan instructed again. "We have to keep a low profile. Don't let people catch us." "Huh, the old master is still here. Who dares to make a move?" The subordinate didn't care. Feng Shan didn't say anything. He just felt that this person was capable, but he still lacked foresight. In the end, he couldn't be of great use. He waved his hand, "Go." "Thank you, winter's snow. Thank you, my favorite snow. Although you're already my poem, but there will be a day when you melt. I can only wait for next year. Meet me in the cold winter in a corner of the square. A man wearing a cap, sunglasses, and the most ordinary clothes was gently playing and singing. Not many people stopped, but it didn't mean that there were none. There was some paper money and coins on the box that the man used to store his guitar. Of course, he didn't need to care about whether there was a harvest or not. As long as someone was willing to stop and listen here, he seemed to be satisfied. The huge screen on the wall of the shopping mall in front of the square was playing a certain advertisement. In the advertisement, a very pure girl was using a lipstick and softly saying the words in her heart. "When you see cherry, will you remember my kiss? Because my kiss is cherry-flavored. Cherry-flavored lipstick, the taste of leaving memories for the person you love the most. Christmas promotion hot launch." After the man finished singing, he lit a cigarette and smoked slowly. He looked at the couples coming and going in the square. He looked at the Christmas decorations around him and the jingle bells coming from the mall in the square. He smiled. "Tomorrow is Christmas Eve. Excuse me, are you singing? Are you closing up?" While he was distracted, he suddenly heard someone ask him this. He looked up and found that it was a young man with a beautiful female companion. Both of them were carrying bags in their hands, which seemed to be filled with some decorations for decoration. They were probably a couple who came out to buy to decorate the atmosphere of the upcoming Christmas. At this time, the young man directly put a 100 yuan bill on the guitar box. "Sing." The man smiled. "What do you want to hear?" "Well, sing what you want to sing now." The young man whispered softly. The man was taken aback, then nodded, picked up the guitar, and casually strummed it. As he was thinking about what to sing, he suddenly remembered that his friend seemed to have mentioned that when he was earning some milk powder money in the square, he also met a couple who gave him 100 yuan tip every time. Could it be this couple? Should I tell Hongwan? It seems that when he mentioned this matter, he seemed to be a little grateful. Zhang Zian smiled and didn't think it would be such coincidence, so he didn't pay too much attention to it. He flicked his fingers and looked at the advertisement on the huge screen while singing with a magnetic and increasingly skillful voice. Merry, Merry Christmas, lonely, lonely Christmas. Want to bless, but don't know who to give it to. Love is tied in a dead knot by us. While waiting for the red light, Zhu Maolin was a little absent-minded looking at the advertisement on the huge screen in the front wing of the shopping mall next to the square. This was the advertisement he did for his old classmates' company, but it was a short film shot by Xiaolu, not the one shot with a famous model. It's actually advertised in this location. This was a prime location. If this was the case, then his old classmates' company would probably not consider putting Xiaolu's advertisement on the TV station. However, since it could be advertised in this bustling area, there was obviously a certain amount of attention. When you see cherries, will you remember my kiss? Because my kiss is cherry-flavored. Vaguely, Zhu Maolin seemed to be able to hear the lines in the advertisement. Of course, he also wrote the advertising message, so at this time, he couldn't tell whether he heard it with his ears or in his heart. Christmas Eve, the waiting red light passed unknowingly. Zhu Maolin put down the handbrake, and the car drove away. It didn't take long to come to the street of an old district. This was Xiaolu's home. He had just been here, so his impression was still there. He got out of the car, pressed the anti-theft lock, and walked a few steps forward. He saw the stairs of the old house with a few floors. At this time, sitting, and it was Xiaolu. Zhu Maolin recognized Xiaolu's clothes. She buried her head in her knees at this time. Zhu Maolin frowned and walked forward. Are you okay? Xiaolu raised her head subconsciously. Her eyes were red and swollen. There was even a bright palm print on the left cheek and tears. Xiaolu opened her mouth, as if she was surprised that the person who appeared in front of her was actually Zhu Maolin. She didn't say anything. She quickly stood up, lowered her head, and didn't go upstairs. She walked away quickly from Zhu Maolin, as if she didn't want to have more interactions with Zhu Maolin. Wait, where are you going? Zhu Maolin asked indifferently. Xiaolu stopped, but she immediately started her footsteps. Didn't you say that today is your birthday? Zhu Maolin raised his voice a little. I bought you a small cake. Do you want to eat it? Xiaolu turned around. Her body was a little weak. The red palm print on her face was still bright, but she pursed her lips and nodded sadly. Manager, can it be your turn this time? She looked at Zhu Maolin, full of hope. Accompany me? Just a while before 12 o'clock. When I came, I saw a small park in front. Do you want to go? Zhu Maolin asked. Cake, and? Didn't you say that you bought a cake? Xiaolu stared at Zhu Maolin's hands like a wronged little girl. Where is it? Chapter 676. Are they the three women? In the hall of the casino, it was still the baccarat table where Lu Xianglin had been sitting. However, since he finished the bet with Ajay, this table had not been opened again. Although the new banker had replaced the previous one, he stood here nervously. He even used a rag to wipe the cards that were sent to the gamblers. If this evil guy doesn't leave, who dares to gamble? At this time, listening to Lu Zixing's sudden words, Ho Chen Yuhan was startled. Then, she quickly glanced at the rich ladies. These ladies did not leave. They just stood at another table and looked at her from time to time. Looking at the situation, it seemed that they intended to come over and ask, but they had some scruples. They probably couldn't guess the relationship between her and the person next to her who had won a lot of money in the gambling hall. Ho Chen Yuhan nodded quickly. Anyway, there was no one at this baccarat table at the moment. She was not afraid that others would hear her. I was brought to this place by them. I originally thought it was an ordinary leisure club. So, you are married, Lu Zixing said abruptly. Ho Chen Yuhan was startled. She wanted to ask how he knew, but when she saw the other party staring at her finger with the ring, she nodded. Then, she hurriedly said, I am not that kind of person. I, I really didn't come here to play with men. Lu Zixing shook his head. Your affairs have nothing to do with me. After you get the money, you follow me out, and then we will go our separate ways. But you said you don't want money, so I won't give it to you. Ho Chin Yuhan nodded. The waiting time is always long. Ho Chin Yuhan didn't know what to say to this man. She felt extremely awkward. She had been in this kind of environment all the time, and she was even more uneasy. However, she didn't dare to walk away easily. She took out her mobile phone and found that the mobile phone had run out of battery and turned off automatically. The charger was still with her, but she didn't know where to charge it now. You were so lucky. Ho Chin Yuhan was still too scared. She was afraid that the rich madams would see that she had nothing to do with this man and walk up to her directly. She was even more afraid that if these rich ladies came forward to pester him, this man would directly ignore them out of fear of trouble and leave without taking her with him. Therefore, she could only find some topics to talk about. Even if they only exchanged a few sentences, at least they didn't have to act as if they didn't know each other. Luck? After listening, Lu Zixing shook his head and sneered. If I say that I used all my future luck on today, after today, I might die on the street because of bad luck, would you believe me? Ho Chin Yuhan subconsciously shook her head. This man gave her a very strange feeling. Not the feeling of her heart, but the feeling of a homeless wretch. Obviously, he had become rich overnight and possessed money that others could never earn in their lifetime. Yet he seemed so pitiful. I don't believe it myself. Lu Zixing laughed at himself. But that's the truth. Don't be so pessimistic. Ho Chin Yuhan shook her head. You were fine. How could you die? Would it be strange to die? Lu Zixing said calmly. The population of this world is too large. Any impossible thing is magnified to such a terrifying base. The probability will also be magnified. Let's not talk about other things. I saw news a few years ago. You may not believe it. There was a father and son who just came home from eating at their grandparents' place. On the way, the father got out of the car and went to the convenience store next to him to buy something to coax the child. The child stayed in the car because it was inconvenient for him to move. Unexpectedly, just a few minutes later, when the father crossed the road at the green light, he was hit by a drunk driver. As a result, the father was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment, but no one knew about the child. In the end, the child suffocated to death in the car. You say, the child who suffocated to death was already unfortunate. In the end, he died because he was unlucky. The world didn't give him any warmth. Such a thing is tragic enough, right? Isn't it going to happen? Therefore, it wouldn't be strange if I were to die a violent death tomorrow. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Lu Zixing found that the woman who had just helped him to draw the cards suddenly lowered her head, pursed her lips, and looked pale. No, Ho Chin Yuhan shook her head, took a deep breath, and forced a smile. I just feel that what you said is right. You're that child's mother? Lu Zixing said coldly. Ho Chin Yuhan suddenly looked up and looked at him in disbelief. She subconsciously said, You knew it long ago? Lu Zixing shook his head. I guessed very accurately today. Do you believe me? As if he was afraid that Ho Chin Yuhan would not believe him, Lu Zixing casually took the poker cards that he had used but had not put away and pulled one out, Queen of Spades. He flipped it over. As he said, the card that was flipped over directly showed that it was the Queen of Spades. He shouted a number before the card was flipped over, and then verified his correctness again and again. It was as if he had already known what would be flipped over. Ho Chin Yuhan found it hard to imagine that such a thing would happen, but her intuition told her that the other party did not tell any lies. Then you guess my name? I can't guess this. Lu Zixing shook his head. There are only 52 cards. My luck should be enough, but the combination of names is endless. I'm afraid my luck is not enough. As for what I said just now, I just looked at your appearance and my heart moved. I'm sorry, I didn't intend to mention your sadness. Don't mind. No, it's nothing. Ho Chin Yuhan shook her head and said sadly, It's been a long time. Lu Zixing nodded and looked at a door in the gambling hall in front of him. He suddenly said, Get ready. After I withdraw the money, leave with me immediately. If I have a hunch, someone is already waiting for me outside. You mean the casino's people? Ho Chen Yuhan was shocked. Not necessarily. Lu Zixing smiled indifferently. I'm a bad person. For gambling, my family is ruined. Even my closest mother will sever ties with me and chase me away. It's normal to have more enemies. But you, Ho Chen Yuhan, still wanted to say something. Lu Zixing had already stood up. The casino's consultant, Ajay, had already walked in front of him with the check. She looked at Lu Zixing silently. Since you have already said these words, why do you still come to this place to gamble again? Welcome to come again. Next time, I will not lose to you again. Ajay smiled calmly. It was as if the money lost was only a small amount. Lu Zixing took the check silently, and then checked his account with his mobile phone. He found that the other part of the money had also been transferred to his account. He looked at Jia and said indifferently, I'm afraid this is the last time I gamble. Ajay frowned instantly. You mean you won't gamble in the future? Such an opponent that he couldn't defeat did not make him feel frustrated. Instead, it aroused his desire to win. His state of mind was almost perfect since he finished his apprenticeship. But because of Lu Zixing's words, he couldn't help but be shaken and angry. No. Lu Zixing shook his head. I said, I won't gamble anymore. But I will still gamble on something else. What are you gambling on? Ajay asked subconsciously. The future. The future? Yes. Lu Zixing nodded. This is the only thing I can gamble on in my life. After Lu Zixing finished speaking, he didn't say anything more. He just directly motioned for Ho Chen Yuhan to follow him and left in front of Ajay. Ajay had a feeling that he might not meet this strange man again in the future. Just like his master, the one known as the god of gamblers. After losing to a person who didn't even know how to gamble, he never saw this opponent again. He suddenly remembered the last sentence his master said before he finished his apprenticeship. There is no best gambler in the world, but there must be the strongest gambler. That is the person who dares to gamble with fate, using life as a bargaining chip, and finally wins by half a point. I lost. The young gambling master quietly admitted defeat. He didn't have the courage to challenge his fate and future. A simple boomerang, a seesaw, the swaying, fickle banyan tree shadow, and the cold wind of early winter. A swing was also installed on the small sand pool. Zhu Maolin and little Lu sat on the adjacent swing boards. This was just a very simple piece of tiramisu. It was small, only the size of little Lu's palm. After sitting down, little Jade didn't say a word. She just carefully cut a small piece with her fork, as if she was reluctant to part with it, and put it into her mouth. It took a long time for her to savor the taste before she was willing to cut a small piece with a fork again. All the delicacies in the world seemed to have been condensed into this small piece of tiramisu. This was probably the happiest and most satisfying way to eat this cake for the master who made it. Zhu Maolin didn't ask how the wound on little Lu's face came about, nor did he ask why she was sitting downstairs and crying secretly. Even if her clothes were a little messy, he didn't ask. Little Lu didn't take the initiative to say. There were some things that he didn't want others to know. This was what Zhu Maolin said not long ago. Just in the hot pot restaurant not long ago, he said this to little Lu once. At 11:37 p.m., he stayed here with little Lu for more than 10 minutes. There were still 23 minutes until 12 o'clock p.m. This little bit of future time was like the clouds in the night sky. It was impossible to know the changes of these clouds in the next second. I can't bear to eat it. Little Lu suddenly stopped and put the rest of the cake back into the box. She looked at Zhu Maolin and whispered, if this box can be stopped for a year, next year at this time I can still open it. The hearts of the younger girls were filled with such absurd and beautiful fantasies. But Zhu Maolin was no longer young. Even if he knew that as long as he said something at this time, he might be able to leave something deeper than an impression in the girl's heart. It wasn't a maybe, but he knew because he had had love before. He knew where the nutrients needed for its germination came from. The girl was now waiting for him to say such words. She stared at him deeply, just like when she was filming the advertisement, the role of the first awakening of love. The faint lips were not smeared with lipstick like during the shooting, but it seemed to retain the sweet cherry taste. Perhaps it was now mixed with the fragrance of tiramisu. What kind of sweet taste would this be? Zhu Maolin closed his eyes instead, but he couldn't imagine it. Like a bear in spring. Zhu Maolin suddenly said a sentence and opened his eyes at the same time. Little Lu showed a puzzled look. Zhu Maolin smiled faintly and said, "It's a description in the Norwegian forest. I like it just like a bear in spring." "Why is it a bear?" Little Lu asked subconsciously. Zhu Maolin looked up at the clouds in the sky as if he wanted to imagine the appearance of a bear cub. He said, "In the spring field, hundreds of flowers are blooming. Birds are singing and flowers are fragrant. You walk alone on the hillside, and a furry, black and white bear cub is walking toward you. It sits in front of you stupidly, blinking at you, so you hold it and roll down the soft hillside. You don't feel pain because the bear is soft, and the grass and soil are also soft. Your body is covered with grass clippings and wild chrysanthemum petals. At this moment, you don't have to think about anything. Your body and mind are comfortable. Don't you like it?" "I like it." Little Lu closed her eyes and said softly, "I use these words to pursue my current wife." Zhu Maolin instantly interrupted Little Lu's fantasy. She opened her eyes in surprise and disappointment. There was something that Zhu Maolin couldn't see through. Everything showed that she was surprised that he would refuse at this time. "Do you love your wife very much?" Little Lu asked hesitantly. "How can I not love her?" Zhu Maolin asked rhetorically. Little Lu didn't speak. Instead, she opened the box and silently ate the tiramisu under her. Then, she stood up from a swing stool, turned her back to Zhu Maolin, and stood straight as if she was preparing for something. She even took a deep breath. "Can I sing? Birthday song." At this moment, Zhu Maolin also thought of this song that she should know how to sing. But Little Lu shook her head gently and whispered, "A bard once wrote a song for me." Zhu Maolin was taken aback. He didn't seem to hear it clearly, but Little Lu suddenly opened her hands like a swan, spreading its wings. She spun, jumped, and lowered her body. "Are you going to the Scarborough Fair? Coriander, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Please say hello to a girl there for me. She used to be my true love. Please ask her to make a linen shirt for me." She closed her eyes, as if she could no longer see the endless dust that was raging everywhere. The surrounding winter scenery seemed to have regressed to late autumn. The bleak autumn wind swept across the endless wasteland with the smell of hay. She was like a barefoot wandering dancer, waiting for someone to return. This wasn't any version that Zhu Maolin was familiar with. He unconsciously exiled his thoughts to this wasteland, forgetting everything. It seemed that he really came to this lonely dancer and became the person she returned to. Gently, he heard the dancer's call. "My birthday wish is to find someone I like, be with him all the time, and have a lovely child with him. Can you help me fulfill this wish?" Zhu Maolin sighed slowly. His heart suddenly became hot. The male instinct was like a volcano that had accumulated for a long time. He got up abruptly. "Sorry, I'm going home." When the car parked outside, the small park started and drove away directly. It seemed that it didn't want to stay for a moment. When it was completely gone, Little Lu sat alone on the bench of the swing. Next to the seat where Zhu Maolin used to sit was the empty box that contained the tiramisu. She seemed to be a little distracted, and then she subconsciously raised her hand, only to see a white card slowly appear on her palm. Then the white card was completely broken in an instant. When the investor temporarily destroyed all transaction possibilities, the white card representing the investor would be broken. At least, in a short time, the corresponding investor's heart was almost perfect, where the investor felt that he could do what he wanted to do. "Oh, so you're here. What are you doing here in the middle of the night? Didn't I just slap you twice and you left? Have you forgotten who is your father?" "Huh, where is he?" A figure hurriedly rushed into this small park at this time. He had a fierce face and a mustache. He looked middle-aged, but he could only see Little Lu sitting here alone. He walked to Little Lu's side and asked curiously, "Sister 18, didn't you say you will come here at 12 o'clock on time?" "No need." Little Lu glanced at him indifferently. "Go play by yourself." This mission failed. "What?" The fierce middle-aged man gradually changed his expression in surprise. This was Taisetsu. A black mist gushed out from Little Lu. The next second, she was wearing a black robe again. Little Lou's appearance seemed to be forever covered in the invisible black mist again. She disappeared in front of Taisetsu. Go play by yourself? Play what? And give me this part. Yes, this part with a Mark 7. In the club, Boss Luo, who was engrossed in assembling a Christmas tree that he had just ordered, stretched out his palm. After a while, Mississippi Maid directly sent the required parts to his hand. It's almost done. Yu looked expectantly at the Christmas tree that was about to be completed. At this moment, black smoke slowly poured in from the club's door. Luochio said without looking back, "Teen, you are here. Come, let's put together this Christmas tree. It's almost done." "Yes." 18 nodded and respectfully walked to Boss Luo's side. Under Luochio's instructions, she hung a decorative item on the top of the Christmas tree. While hanging it, 18 whispered, "Master, subordinate deserves to die. The white card you approved this time has been destroyed. Bring the thing over there." Luochio pointed. Number 18 hurriedly took the things over. After Luochio installed it, he took 2 steps back. The Christmas tree was completely installed. Boss Luo looked at the Christmas tree with satisfaction and asked with a smile, "How do you feel?" 18 subconsciously said, Subordinate relies too much on the ability of dream of the past. Although I have always been successful, I have neglected the basic ability that a black soul messenger should have. Once I encounter a patron who can't use dream of the past, I'm afraid I'm worse than a newcomer. Subordinate should wake up. I'm talking about this Christmas tree." Luochio shook his head. 18 raised her head. "This master personally installed it, so it's naturally the best." Luochio shook his head and said indifferently, "Of course it's the best, but it's not because I installed it. It's because I installed it with my own hands." He walked to the counter and began to fiddle with the bartending items under the service of Yu Yi. "Don't you feel that it's the most perfect thing to do with your own hands?" 18 looked thoughtful. "This time, what do you want to drink before you leave?" Luochio asked with a smile. "Then, subordinate won't be polite." 18's tone unconsciously relaxed a little. "Honey bar." Luochio smiled slightly. "Okay, please wait a moment." Chapter 677. One day was a microcosm of a lifetime. For some reason, Zhu Maolin suddenly thought of such a sentence. He was like a traveler returning home. He hadn't felt this kind of urgency for a long time. He wanted to go back to the empty house. He wanted to return to the person who would treat him as a treasure, no matter how small he was. How could he say the kind of words? How could he forget the declaration he made when he stepped into the hall with the blessings? Late at night, the streetlights on the street were reversed, and the night was hurried. He suddenly felt a little grateful for the time he and Xiaolu met. He finally knew what attracted him to Xiaolu, and why she made him feel so peaceful and comfortable. There was a shadow of Ho Chun Yuan in Xiaolu. It was as if this was a tailor-made encounter. What Xiaolu gave him was exactly what his girlfriend gave him when he was still in love with his wife. A girl who could bring the feeling of love. Xiaolu was such a magical girl. After putting down the car in the parking lot, Zhu Maolin rushed past the mother-son parking space he bought. In the parking space next to the black SUV, there was also a motorcycle covered with canvas. Zhu Maolin glanced at it subconsciously. This motorcycle was also his, but it hadn't been driven on the road for a long time, even though it had been maintained all the time. This seemed a bit like his relationship with his family. Whether it was him or Ho Chun Yuan, both of them were doing their best to maintain and try to mend the crack, but they couldn't really fill it. It gradually went away, and it gradually became cold. Looking at the number of the elevator floor flashing by, everything in front of Zhu Maolin seemed to be intertwined. For so many days and nights, there were so many nights when he didn't go home and worked overtime until late at night. She carried cooked food bought from a convenience store or fast food restaurant alone. Did she also look up at the jumping number of the elevator alone? That day, he finished shooting a short film and came back early. He had no choice but to make a bowl of noodles by himself. He watched TV and ate by himself. Did she do the same? She dimmed the lights at home. She didn't know what she was eating and what the voices from the TV were talking about. This was something he could imagine, but he had never dared to face or even escape. It wasn't that he didn't have any reaction to his wife. On the contrary, every time he was like a volcano about to erupt. It was just that every time he reached the end, He would always think of that accident. When the child was young, she slept beside him and her. Not at home. He hurriedly opened the door of his house. It was already past 12 o'clock, but there was no one in the house. This time, Zhu Maolin directly picked up the phone without sending a text message. He just wanted to get through to Ho Qinyuhan. The number you dialed is turned off. Zhu Maolin sat on the sofa at once. His phone suddenly rang. A few rich ladies' students quietly followed behind, but they didn't come forward to speak until they knew that Ho Qinyuhan followed Lu Zixing out of this floor. Because they couldn't figure out the other party's background, these madams could only give up and resentfully leave to discuss. The security guards at the top of the hotel seemed to have been ordered to come here. They politely escorted them all the way until they were completely out of the hotel. However, at the gate, the security guards stopped in their tracks. Lu Zixing also stopped here. It seemed that he planned to call a taxi. A person who just won a huge sum of money would come to such a rich gambling hall to gamble. Calling a taxi? Ho Qinyuhan didn't want to get more into his affairs. Even until now, she didn't know the other party's name. She only knew that his surname was Lu from the casino's address to him. She didn't intend to ask. She just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible and go back to her house that was no different from an empty house. She was too tired today. Maybe she could fall asleep. You can go from here. Lu Zixing looked at Ho Qinyuhan at this time. When the next car comes, you get on first. I will wait for the next one. Ho Qinyuhan just nodded. They met by chance. That was all, but she still thanked him. At least he did take her out of this hotel club safely. Lu Zixing looked at the time. It was already past midnight without him noticing. It was now past 12 o'clock. It was about an hour away from 1 o'clock in the morning. He silently calculated the time in his heart. Young Master Lu, we meet again. A van suddenly stopped in front of Lu Zixing and Ho Qinyuhan at this time. Several men in coats walked down directly from the van and surrounded the two without saying a word. One of them even sneered. Young Master Lu, you can escape from the dog cage. Do you really have the ability? And you still have the mood to play with women here? But we don't feel so good. Are you going to leave obediently? Or do you want us to drive you away? Ho Qinyuhan didn't dare to speak, but she was so shocked that she subconsciously grasped her clothes. She looked at the security booth not far away, but she saw that those guys who were very polite before were now looking straight ahead, as if they didn't see them. Out of this range, it's not under their control. This is also what they were told, right? Ho Qinyuhan suddenly had this realization. What should I do? She let her imagination run wild. Lu Zixing said calmly at this time, Where's your boss? Let him come to see me. Don't worry, I won't leave. Is he in the other van? Why didn't he come down? About 3 meters behind the van, a white Bentley Continental had just stopped. Lu Zixing looked at the car that came later. This was Black Panther's car. Don't talk so much nonsense. Just follow us. Don't do it. Lu Zixing shook his head. You were just looking for money. Go and talk to your boss. I have something to talk to him. Let's go back first. The man sneered and directly put his hand on Lu Zixing's shoulder. The other macho men were about to make a move on Ho Qinyuhan. At this time, a man who looked like a driver came down from the white Continental and shouted, Let him come over. The boss wants to see him. Only then did everyone give up and took Lu Zixing directly to the white Continental. As for Ho Qinyuhan, she was still stared at by several macho men. She could only lower her head in horror and shrink her body. She was even more afraid to speak. Get in. Lu Zixing was almost pushed into the car. In the back seat of the car, Brother Black Panther was smoking a cigar. Seeing Lu Zixing come up, he opened his mouth and laughed. Only he and Lu Zixing were in the car. Young Master Lu, you can really escape. Black Panther narrowed his eyes. Your ears don't hurt anymore. It hurts, Lu Zixing said indifferently. It still hurts faintly now. It's even uncomfortable. Black Panther's voice was cold. Then you still dare to run? If I don't run, I can't pay back the money. Lu Zixing shook his head and took out the folded check from his clothes. This check is issued by the gambling hall inside. There should be no problem, including the amount I owe you. There should be more than enough money, including both principal and interest. You can verify it. Black Panther frowned and stared at Lu Zixing for a few times. Then he quickly pulled the check out of Lou Zixing's hand, stretched it out of the car window, and handed it to the driver. You check it, right? After a while, the driver quickly said, Boss, this is true. Brother Black Panther wiped his eyebrows with his hand at this time and didn't speak for a while. He just glanced at a few of his men in the van. Then he suddenly took out a cigar from the cabinet in the back seat. Want to smoke? No, I don't smoke. Lou Zixing shook his head. Brother Black Panther smiled and said, You don't smoke, drink, or prostitute. You just like to gamble. If you don't have this hobby, you might be a good man. If there is no other good thing, can I leave? Lou Zixing asked calmly at this time. He was just forcing himself to be calm, because even if he still had good luck at the moment, he couldn't guarantee that Black Panther would let him go easily after receiving the money. Before the time was up, luck could at least guarantee that he wouldn't die. But it was unknown whether he would fall into a trap. He was actually very nervous at this time. It was just that he could gamble with a mysterious boss. When facing Black Panther, his mentality was already different, at least in the so-called momentum. Did you win this from the casino inside? Lou Zixing nodded. Brother Black Panther was silent for a while. The amount of this check is just right. You seem to have prepared it in advance. Did you know that I would come back? Lou Zixing said, I'm not sure, I'm just guessing. I originally planned to pay off this money, so I prepared in advance. Since you are here, I will give it to you. Brother Black Panther nodded at this time and suddenly patted his thigh. Okay, we will meet again, and we will part on good terms. I just want money, and I don't want to do anything else. Since you, young Master Lou, can pay back the money, I won't say anything. We are still friends in the future. If you come to my place to play, you are still a VIP. Let's talk about it later. Lou Zixing nodded, until he left Black Panther's car, then walked to Ho Chun Yuhan's side, and watched these underlings leave in the van. He still felt a little unbelievable. This Black Panther really let him go so easily. Boss, are we just going to let him go like this? On the way, the driver in front, who was also a confidant, asked puzzledly, This Lou Zixing, I heard that he won hundreds of millions from that new casino. Black Panther bit his cigar and sneered. He just won the money here, and we know about it. We can still come over. Do you think it's right? You mean this new casino did it on purpose? Black Panther said indifferently. The water behind this casino is very deep. Whether it is intentional or not, I don't need to get involved in it. It does its high-end market, and I do my business. It's not time for conflict. We don't need to be used as a tool. But this is not the main reason. The most important reason is, I can't deal with Lou Zixing today. It depends on the situation. If this guy does that, I will hack him to death, even if he doesn't owe me money. For the time being, consider him lucky. Why? The driver asked in surprise. Black Panther asked the driver to stop the car, then asked him to get out and wait. After smoking alone in the car for a while, he hesitated to pick up his phone. After hesitating for a while, he made a call. Not long after. Hello, Panther. Why are you looking for me at this time? Brother Black Panther cleared his throat. It's me, Big Bamboo. I haven't seen you for a long time. You? How are you recently? Where are you now? I'm fine. I just got home. What's the matter? Black Panther said, Nothing, I just suddenly miss you, so I called to say hello. We haven't seen each other for a long time. When are you free to come out and have a drink? Let's talk about it later. I'm a little busy recently. Black Panther thought for a while and said, I say, Big Bamboo, is there something wrong with your relationship with sister-in-law? There was a long silence. Why are you suddenly asking this? Black Panther said, Big Bamboo, don't be angry. I just saw a sister-in-law walk out of a hotel club with a man. I don't know the relationship between the two, and I didn't show up in front of sister-in-law. I'm afraid that she will recognize me. Although she saw me once at your wedding, it has been 5 or 6 years. She should have no impression of me. Seeing that Big Bamboo on the other end of the phone was silent for a long time, Brother Black Panther said angrily, Brother, is there really a problem? Does sister-in-law really dare to cheat on you? Just say something. Say something, and I will immediately catch these 2 bitches in front of you. Mother asterisk Kerr. That year Black Panther, had just started to do underground racing. It was you who won the first bucket of gold for me. And it was you, Big Bamboo, who blocked the knife for me. Otherwise, Black Panther, would have been buried for more than a meter. In this life, I, Black Panther, only recognize you as my brother. You can swallow this, but I can't. What are you talking about? Big Bamboo said slowly. I believe her. Don't mess around. Tell me, where is it? Ugh. It's at the newly opened Four Seasons Fallen Flowers Hotel Club. Black Panther stuck his head out of the window. At this time, the driver suddenly hurriedly said, Boss, I just saw that Lou Zixing met another group of people. They are quite fierce. What? Where are they? Black Panther was stunned. Seeing him pulling a woman, they hurriedly ran over there. The driver pointed and added insult to injury. TSK, this guy really offended a lot of people. Could it be that he owes some money again? Black Panther suddenly said angrily, Do you eat sh*t? Seeing that someone dares to make a move, don't you know how to move? Call for help. I'll see who dares to move. Go quickly. Chase after them. I'll go now. Black Panther quickly pressed the phone and whispered, Big Bamboo, don't worry. If anyone dares to touch sister-in-law, Black Panther, will kill him. Big, beep, beep. In the parking lot of the community, a huge roar suddenly came, causing the cars parked here to buzz, like small animals that were startled. At this moment, there was the sound of an engine roaring again. A modified black motorcycle rushed out from the downhill of the underground parking lot. Chapter 678. Everyone was in the same circle. In this newly opened gambling hall, there were indeed many gamblers who recognized Black Panther. At least they could recognize Black Panther's Continental car and his license plate. But Lou Zixing walked out safely after getting in Brother Black Panther's car for a while. Even Brother Black Panther left with his men without saying anything. I saw it. It seems that Lou Zixing gave Black Panther a check. It should be the one he asked this gambling hall to prepare. So, he had long expected that Black Panther would block people outside. This is not a wall that doesn't leak. Black Panther has already issued a red flower to reward Lou Zixing. Probably someone here took the red flower and told Black Panther. Yes, but this casino is really interesting. He can still be so generous after losing money. TSK. I'm beginning to wonder who the boss behind it is. Yeah, don't think about getting back the money that has entered Black Panther's pocket. Well, this place is really good. You can play anything. As long as you are here, it is safe. Don't you see that Black Panther doesn't dare to come in and take people? Feng Shan was listening to the news that the staff had inquired about, and a smile appeared on his face involuntarily. As the third miss had thought, this was indeed a good opportunity to establish a good reputation. After this, the Four Seasons Falling Flowers Hotel Club temporarily established a foothold in this city. In the future, as long as they walked step by step normally, they would make huge profits. In this way, losing a few $100 million was really not a big deal. Of course, it was only for the third Mississippi director. I didn't expect this Black Panther to be so peaceful. He knew that Lou Zixing had won so much, but he took back his own money and left directly. Feng Shan sneered. This proves that this guy will be difficult to deal with in the future. He must have calculated something, so he didn't act recklessly. Even if we are powerful, this Black Panther is the local snake. Sooner or later, we'll have to fight. Then, on Lou Zixing's side, are we really not doing anything? The subordinate frowned. It's almost time for me to get off work. Feng Shan waved his hand. Let Ajay deal with the gambling hall. As for the rest, I'll leave it to you. You can make your own decisions. It's fine as long as you have a sense of propriety. It's not wrong to ask for some benefits for our brothers. After saying that, Feng Shan smiled faintly, pushed open the door, and left. His subordinate, seeing Feng Shan leave, had a fanatical look in his eyes. He already understood the meaning behind Feng Shan's words. How was he supposed to ask for benefits for his brothers? Naturally, it was to get the money back from the accounts. Of course, the biggest benefit was still to be given to Feng Shan. Feng Shan was a member of the Four Seasons Corporation, and coming here to be the director was equivalent to being a governor of the border. This was a lucrative job to begin with. As for those above Wind Mountain, as long as the accounts were done well and the actual profits were not damaged, with how busy the third miss was, she probably wouldn't find out even after 8 to 10 years. Even if they found out, they would probably just turn a blind eye to it. With so many soldiers, they were not united in the first place. If their subordinates did not have enough to eat, who would be willing to work hard? Besides, it's true that the third Miss needs to establish a brand, but this Lu Zixing is such a gambler. Who knows if he doesn't have other debts besides Black Panther? For such a guy, even if he died on the street, no one would be surprised. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. The industry of gambling was originally a chain of interests that were interconnected. Let's do it. He made a phone call and left with a sneer. Along the way, Ho Chin Yuhan was already sweating profusely and had difficulty breathing. She was just an ordinary person with limited physical strength. As for Lu Zixing, he was also gasping for breath. Why didn't you just go straight into the hotel? The people who caught up from behind were of unknown origin, and they chased after him tightly. We can't go back. Lu Zixing gasped. It will be worse if we go back. How do you know? Intuition. Lu Zixing didn't look back and directly told Ho Chin Yuhan, I have such a hunch. As long as it is not past 1 o'clock this morning, I believe in my hunch. The two quickly hid in an alley. As soon as they stopped, Ho Chin Yuhan couldn't hold on anymore. She leaned back against the wall, hugged her bag, and slumped to the ground. Since graduating from school, she had never run more than 200 meters. It was incredible to be chased down the street like this tonight. I can't walk anymore. Ho Chin Yuhan looked at Lu Zixing in horror. She wanted him to take her out. It was just jumping from one fire pit into another fire pit. Why don't you call the police? My cell phone is out of battery. You can't call the police. Lu Zixing rested with one hand on the wall. This is a new development zone. The police station here is very messy. Perhaps the municipal bureau was very righteous, but Lu Zixing knew a lot about this station. In the past, there were several guys who deliberately went in to avoid Black Panther's debt, but they were still directly taken out. Black Panther also had the ability to get people out. Then, the people chasing him could do the same. Your ear. Ho Chin Yuhan suddenly covered her mouth in horror. It turned out that Lu Zixing subconsciously lifted the hat attached to his clothes because he was too hot. The gauze on his ear naturally couldn't be hidden. Even because of the strenuous exercise, the wound burst again and blood flowed out. It was very painful. But Lu Zixing smiled bleakly and looked at Ho Chin Yuhan. It was cut off the night before yesterday. Are they the people who are chasing us now? Ho Chin Yuhan was even more shocked. Lu Zixing shook his head. No, it's the group of people who left before. They also run casinos. I lost a lot there, and I had no money to pay them back. They cut off my ear and planned to send it to my house. Planned to? I escaped. Lu Zixing sighed. I don't know if it was sent over. I think I should go back and take a look. However, there shouldn't be any problem. My family won't be worried. Ho Chin Yuhan was taken aback. She really couldn't understand Lu Zixing's words. What won't be worried? A family? Remember, Lu Zixing suddenly looked at Ho Chin Yuhan. In this world, except for money, all the important things that belong to you can't be lost. If you lose them, I will end up like that. You shouldn't go to a place like a casino in the future. Consider it a piece of advice. I was really just dragged here. I didn't know there was a casino in the hotel. Ho Chin Yuhan shook her head. Lu Zixing didn't intend to delve into it. As Black Panther said, if he removed the gambling fly, he might not be a bad person. Let's not discuss this anymore. Lu Zixing seemed to have recovered. While looking out, he said indifferently, it doesn't matter if you want to listen or not. I just said what I should say. You run when you see the opportunity later. I will go out first and lead them away. If you don't come with me, they are just coming for me. Be careful. Wait. Hey. Lu Zixing had already put on his hat again and rushed out directly. He looked at the time displayed on his phone. There were still the last 15 minutes. Ho Chin Yuhan hid in the alley and heard the movement outside. Those people seemed to be attracted by Lu Zixing all of a sudden. However, she hid here alone. The surroundings were dim, the street lights were not on, and there was no one in the middle of the night. Naturally, she was extremely scared. She really didn't have the courage to leave here. Originally, before today, she was just an ordinary ceramic art teacher in an ordinary ceramic art classroom. She never thought that she would encounter such a thrilling thing. She thought of her tragic experience and couldn't help but shed tears. After a long time, she didn't know if Lu Zixing had escaped. Ho Chin Yuhan finally mustered up her courage. She didn't dare to stay in this place any longer. She looked out and found that there was no one outside. She gritted her teeth, lowered her head, and rushed out quickly. At this time, a strong light came from her side and the sound of a motorcycle engine. Ho Chin Yuhan turned her head and looked. The headlights of the motorcycle were like the sun. She couldn't see anything at once. She could only hear the sound of the engine approaching quickly. Are you all useless? There are so many people, and you can't even catch two people? A lot of accidents have happened. We were just about to catch up, but as soon as we turned the corner, a tramp who was picking up garbage with a cart came out and hit us. We saw it on the forked road and went straight up. As a result, it was just people who happened to wear the same clothes. It wasn't him at all. Also, there was a sudden power outage on this road. It was too dark. All of a sudden, I don't want to listen to your explanation. People, I want people. Bring it back right now. Don't worry, I've already asked my brothers to ride out. Found him. The person who said this was actually already riding a motorcycle. At this time, without saying anything, he stuffed the phone into his pocket. His hand suddenly pressed on the accelerator, and his hands exerted force. The motorcycle stood upright at a 40-50 degree angle and directly sped towards the man in front, Lu Zixing. Damn it. Has my luck run out? Lu Zixing looked at the motorcycle that was rushing toward him and rolled on the ground to avoid it. However, he saw that the other two motorcycles were rushing toward him at this time. The development zone was too far away, and it was late at night. There were no taxis willing to come here to pick up customers, and no Didi drivers appeared nearby. He couldn't encounter any more coincidences. Sure enough, his luck had run out. Lu Zixing gritted his teeth, knowing that he was afraid that he couldn't escape from these people. So he directly reached out to grab the hidden coin without thinking. At least he could still bet with the boss. Even if he ran out of luck, at least the bet with the boss was absolutely fair. Even if he had the worst luck now, there was still a 50% chance of winning. Let's bet. He suddenly calmed down. I have lost all my life. I don't want to lose again, let alone in this place. He held the coin in his hand and was about to call the boss out, but at this time, found it. Here. Lu Zixing subconsciously turned his head and saw 4 or 5 men holding slender molten iron pipes or black sticks in their hands. They rushed out directly. Even also stopped in front at this time. These big men rushed to the front of the 3 motorcycles, swung the tools in their hands, and smashed them without saying a word. The destructive power was amazing. Lu Zixing opened his mouth. Aren't these people Black Panther's men? Why did they suddenly come to save me? Young Master Lu, are you okay? A bald man with a face full of fat came in front of Lu Zixing at this time. Lu Zixing felt like he had just escaped from the tiger's mouth and entered the wolf's den. His face was pale. No. Why did you come to save me? Oh, our boss said. The guy with the fat face said casually, if anyone dares to touch you, we will kill him. Come on, we will protect you. Get in the car. Lu Zixing couldn't figure out Black Panther's meaning for a while. But facing these guys with unknown origins riding motorcycles and the blades behind them, Lu Zixing thought it would be better to meet Black Panther again. At least he had been dealing with them. He nodded, and then, under the escort of several people, he got on the van that took him to the dog farm last time. He didn't know what the road ahead was, and he had no premonition. There was only uneasiness. He subconsciously looked at the time. It turned out that the time had just run out. Zhu, where are you? Brother Black Panther hurriedly asked on the phone. I'm at the front door of Four Seasons Fallen Flowers Hotel. Despite this, the engine of the modified black motorcycle did not stop. Zhu Maolin just opened the helmet cover and looked around. F***CK so fast? Didn't you say you were still at home? I'm going against the speed. Zhu Maolin said indifferently. F***CK. You really dare? No, this is you. Don't talk about this. Black Panther, do you know who those people are? Why do they want to catch my wife? I don't know, but it shouldn't be to catch sister-in-law. You have been out of the racing world for so many years. There shouldn't be anyone who wants to deal with you. I guess they are here for Lu Zixing. That guy is addicted to gambling. I don't know how much money he owes outside. I heard that he just won hundreds of millions from the Four Seasons Hotel. They're probably watching him. Wait, I need to answer the phone. There's probably news. After a while, Brother Black Panther quickly changed the phone and said, Zhu, Lou Zixing was rescued, but we didn't find sister-in-law. He separated from sister-in-law and led those people away by himself. Where did they separate at that time? There was a power outage, and it was too dark nearby. He didn't notice. Where did your people leave him? The place on North 4th Street. Zhu Maolin took a deep breath, slammed the helmet cover down, and tightened the throttle. The modified motorcycle swerved directly in front of the Four Seasons Fallen Flower Hotel. On this deserted road in the middle of the night, it went against the flow again. 3 motorcycles circled around Ho Chin Yuhan. She could only shrink in place, not daring to look up. She was like a drowning victim in the sea who was being attacked by sharks. Tell me, where is Lou Zixing? The person on one of the motorcycles shouted coldly at this time, Tell us obediently, and we won't hurt you. Lou Zixing, you mean that person? Ho Chin Yuhan had to think helplessly. Until now, I didn't know the guy's full name. I don't know. I have already run away. Ho Chin Yuhan shook her head. You won't shed tears until you see the coffin? The man sneered, I just don't know if you can run fast enough. Tie her up and drag her away. Let's see how long she can be stubborn. Seeing one of the riders directly take out a white rope, Ho Chin Yuhan trembled in horror. Her body went soft. She was indeed just the most ordinary woman. How could she resist these men if she wanted to? Just at the moment when the rider was about to make a move, on a wall not far away, a figure that was alternating between virtual and real suddenly materialized. The figure was wearing a scarf, squinting his eyes with a sullen expression. It was Onyx Soul Taisetsu, who was playing here. He said coldly, The rule of the underworld is not to harm the wife and children. Why don't you understand? The boss didn't stipulate that I can't kill people. Jean Lu. He opened his palm, and a small long sword was spinning in his palm. The small sword instantly grew bigger and was about to shoot out from his palm, but it suddenly stopped. He once again hid in the dark night. The roar of the huge motorcycle that didn't belong here suddenly sounded. The 4-strong light was also like a sharp sword, piercing directly into here. Chapter 679. That was the roar of a beast. With a rumbling sound, the black modified motorcycle actually dashed down the steep staircase at the side. The bumpy posture was like a ferocious tiger, shaking its body in anger. It was awe-inspiring. Taisetsu, who was hiding in the nothingness of the night, gently hung Jean Lu, who had transformed into a key again, around his neck. At the same time, he tidied up his scarf and said softly, A man should be like this. Zhu Maolin, not bad. Taisetsu changed from standing to sitting. He leisurely unscrewed a bottle of green tea and drank by himself with a smile on his face. At this moment, one of the riders shouted, Who is it? The black modified motorcycle suddenly braked, and a huge inertia caused the back half of the motorcycle to be lifted up. However, the person on the motorcycle twisted forcefully, and the back half of the motorcycle actually turned and slammed into the rider, causing him to roll to the ground. Damn it! Several other people cursed at the same time, and they rushed over frantically without saying a word. But the man on the black motorcycle pulled out a huge silver wrench from the motorcycle. He was like a knight riding a horse in ancient times, dancing fiercely. This kind of big wrench was long and hard. It could easily injure a person's bones. It was a super killing weapon. Get on! He, who was waving the huge long wrench in his hand, shouted loudly at this time. Ho Chin Yuhan was shocked. She recognized this familiar voice and said in surprise, Husband, get on. Zhu Maolin threw the wrench in his hand directly at this time, slamming it on the shoulder of another rider who wanted to pounce on him. The rider was in great pain. At the same time, he pressed the accelerator again. The black motorcycle started again and rushed toward Ho Chin Yuhan. He grabbed Ho Chin Yuhan's palm with one hand, lifted her up, and sat behind him, Hold me tight. Ho Chin Yuhan didn't think about anything at all, nor did she think about why Zhu Maolin was here. She just felt very safe at this moment. She gritted her teeth and nodded. Then she hugged Zhu Maolin's back with all her strength. A lot of dust was caused by the friction between the high-speed, rotating tires and the ground. Zhu Maolin ignored these riders and rushed out. Chase. Keep chasing. The riders who had fallen to the ground gritted their teeth and endured the pain as they got up. They hurriedly picked up the motorcycle that had fallen to the ground, stepped on it slowly, and madly chased after it like a ferocious hyena chasing after a lion. Hubby, we'll talk about it later. Zhu Maolin didn't turn his head. He simply responded, but his voice was very gentle. Hold me tighter. Ho Chin Yuhan nodded gently, and her hands holding Zhu Maolin tightened unconsciously. Zhu Maolin looked at the rearview mirror of the motorcycle. The three motorcycles behind were in hot pursuit at this time, approaching crazily. Looking at the way these guys drive, I'm afraid they are not ordinary riders. Zhu Maolin narrowed his eyes. So what? Who can catch up with him? Even though his hand was separated, his palm seemed to be directly connected to the motorcycle's directional handle at this moment. Zhu Maolin's body suddenly bent down a little, and his chest was almost attached to the motorcycle's accelerator. Amidst the wind, the black motorcycle tilted hard to the ground on the left side and turned away directly at the shortest distance. The thrilling degree made Ho Chun Yuhan subconsciously close her eyes, and her heart pounded. Damn, who's this guy? Even if they were in hot pursuit, they could only barely reach the level of hot pursuit. The distance was even widening little by little. For the riders, this was no less than the most thorough humiliation. In this kind of speed competition, being constantly left behind by the opponent was something that all the riders in the world didn't want to see. They couldn't help but step on the accelerator frantically. Their eyes were already red with anxiety. The guy driving the black motorcycle in front was too arrogant. At this moment, he was going in the opposite direction. Although it was so late at night, even if he was going in the opposite direction, there were no cars on the road of this new development zone. This guy is planning to get on the highway. We can't let him get on. Yes, this guy's motorcycle is modified too well. Most people won't modify it like this. Once he gets on the highway, we can't catch up anymore. I'll go around the front to outflank him. The higher the speed of the motorcycle, the louder the engine roar. Especially on the avenue of this empty development zone, it was like the roar of an air defense exercise, deafening. A rider must have taken a shortcut at this time. At this moment, he charged directly in front of Zhu Maolin, holding a thick and long iron chain in his hand. Husband, close your eyes. Don't be afraid. I won't be there. Zhu Maolin quickly looked at the surrounding environment and found that there was no usable terrain, but he unreasonably pulled out another wrench from the gap of the motorcycle's front. When the rider who was intercepting in front saw this guy pull out another wrench, his heart jumped in fright. This guy, does he always bring this kind of violent weapon when he goes out? Just who is the one in the underworld here? The intercepting rider was instinctively afraid of this terrifying wrench after all. He shrank his head abruptly, and his body even trembled. Zhu Maolin was unobstructed. He quietly drifted away from the other party's interception. But Zhu Maolin didn't intend to rush to the highway again. Instead, he drove directly toward the urban area on this development road. The urban area was much more prosperous. There were more vehicles going home or leaving late at night on the road. The whistling wind made Ho Chin Yuhan unable to hear anything. She hid behind Zhu Maolin, so the whistling wind didn't make her unable to open her eyes. She couldn't hear any sound other than the wind, even if the sound of the engine was so close. Her body swayed with the swaying of the black motorcycle. The wind hit her clothes with a bone-chilling chill. She didn't know how many private cars Zhu Maolin had passed. Only the road ahead was a long road, like a curved road leading to a castle on a high mountain in an oil painting. There was no one on the endless road. Ho Chin Yuhan raised her head slightly. The surrounding buildings gradually stacked up. It was no longer the empty development zone. The bustling downtown had long been quiet, but the neon lights that brought light pollution were still shining. But the neon lights were also like layers of aurora. They had a curvature. The black motorcycles that were traveling on the huge, curved ring road had an arc as they quickly passed over Ho Chin Yuhan's head. The motorcycle seemed to go from one end to the other. It walked to the end of the road, then finally jumped out of the camera and disappeared. The three riders finally stopped. In the end, they couldn't even see the tail light of the black motorcycle. They could only give up sadly. The chill was still there. After all, it was winter at the end of December. From being frightened to being frightened, Ho Chin Yuhan had been frightened the whole day. At this time, her body was trembling because of the cold, but she didn't know why she felt relieved. Did Zhu Maolin slow down? Ho Chin Yuhan didn't know. She didn't have the ability to measure the speed of the motorcycle. However, the whistling not only covered all her hearing, but also seemed to entangle everything that passed by in the world, making them deep in the mud. Slow down, slow down. Everything gradually slowed down in front of her eyes. She tried hard to make her half-opened eyes widen a little. Then she put her ear behind Zhu Maolin. This seemed to be able to break the noise of the whistling wind and hear the heartbeat in his body. It was strong and powerful. The speed of the motorcycle might have slowed down, and the cold wind was no longer so piercing. Ho Chin Yuhan suddenly said, "I just felt that my body seemed to be lifted up. Is it the wind?" Zhu Maolin just tilted his head slightly, opened the lid of the helmet, and said with a smile, "You are too fat. How can the wind lift you up unless it is a level 12 typhoon?" Ho Chin Yuhan opened her mouth and wanted to bite this guy's ear, but she saw that he was wearing a helmet, so she had to give up. She suddenly chuckled, lying on Zhu Maolin's back, and chuckled, "I haven't laughed so happily for a long time." And I heard it. "Husband, let's take another lap before going home, okay?" The black motorcycle finally stopped in its original position, and Zhu Maolin covered it with the canvas again. Ho Chin Yuhan stood next to him. It was not cold in the underground parking lot anymore. She said softly, "It hasn't been driven for more than a year, right?" "Actually, I have driven it." Zhu Maolin shook his head. His gaze was a little complicated. "I have driven it secretly." Ho Chin Yuhan raised her head and asked, "When you don't go home and talk about working overtime?" "Occasionally." Zhu Maolin didn't see the anger in his wife's eyes. He just stretched out his hand and grabbed Ho Chin Yuhan's arm above her wrist. He pulled her to the elevator and walked in. She was well-behaved just like when they first met. Later, in front of the house, Zhu Maolin touched his body and found that he didn't bring the key. Ho Chin Yuhan knocked on his head. She was the one who opened the door. Before she had time to turn on the lights in the living room, Zhu Maolin, who came in later, reached out and closed the door. He directly pressed Ho Chin Yuhan's body against the wall at the entrance, held her cheek with one hand, and kissed her violently. She unbuttoned his clothes. He unbuttoned her clothes. All the clothes were thrown on the ground casually. Zhu Maolin lifted Ho Chin Yuhan's leg on one side, and his private part forcefully filled her emptiness over the years. The flame of love and lust between them reignited. The beautiful flower cards hidden in Ho Chin Yuhan's clothes also quietly disappeared. What Boss Luo reassembled in his hand was the flower card that disappeared quietly. It meant that the business this time had been canceled. Of course, this business had not started. The customer was still hesitating when buying. Since they didn't mention it, there was naturally no follow-up. This was the first time Luochio canceled a transaction automatically since he took office. But Boss Luo didn't care. Boss Luo nodded and said calmly, "The time difference is gone." With a wave of his hand, the flower card in his hand disappeared. Boss Luo snapped his fingers. Since husband and wife can mate, they can naturally reproduce. This is human nature. They should have a very good child in the future. All the misfortunes. Who knows? The boss, who was thinking about something, looked at the maid beside him at this moment, smiled, and said, "Even if the transaction is not successful, we should still be righteous. It's not good to let people stop profiteers all day." "Master, are you talking about Ms. Long?" The maid blinked. "I didn't say that." Chapter 680. This time, Lu Zixing was not treated by Brother Black Panther. Wasn't it? Compared to the last time, when he was trapped in a dog cage and surrounded by countless ferocious dogs, this time he was just sitting in the back seat of a van sandwiched between two big men. Although there was still a taboo atmosphere, it was much better. Even a bald macho man sitting in front gave him a bottle of water to drink. It wasn't until 4 o'clock in the morning that the bald macho man in front received a phone call. He nodded quickly, then looked at Lu Zixing and shouted, "The boss said that you can go now." Lu Zixing was startled. "Black Panther protected me like this. Then let me stay for a while before letting me go. Is it because of the unknown woman that I brought out of the gambling hall? After these people saved me, they specifically asked about the woman. Everything was abnormal at this time. Even the fact that Black Panther didn't make things difficult for me at the beginning was probably related to the seemingly ordinary woman." Thinking of this, from the moment he chose the woman to draw cards for him, he had already planted the good luck of this night. Every sip and peck seemed to be fated. Is it just because of luck? Lu Zixing couldn't figure this out. The luck he won for the day should have disappeared. At this time, his mind was muddy, groggy, and exhausted. He was not like a few hours ago when he was lucky. His face was flushed, and he was full of energy as if he had the help of God. At this time, although the bald macho man had said that he could leave, the two men beside him were motionless. Saying and doing were different. Lu Zixing had experienced many things, and he already had some understanding in his heart. So he simply said, "Brothers, thank you for your hard work tonight. Take 500,000 each as the tea fee." Lu Zixing didn't care about this small amount of money in the past, and now he naturally didn't care. As the saying goes, the little devil is difficult to deal with. It was referring to these people who were his subordinates. He took out his mobile phone. Now, the function of the mobile phone was too perfect. He gave each of the men in the car 500,000 yuan as a red packet. Only then did these big men send Lu Zixing off the car with a smile. They even asked him where he wanted to go, and they could send him there directly, and so on. Lu Zixing thought about it. He was still in the scope of the new development zone. He didn't know where the riders who caught him came from. It was not safe to stay in the vicinity. It was better to take advantage of his unclear relationship with Black Panther and take a ride. He simply let these burly men send him directly back to the city. Then each of them got off and disappeared into the nearby streets. Soon after, Lu Zixing casually found a dilapidated hotel to stay. At this time, he was sleepy, tired, and even hungry. He casually asked for a bowl of instant noodles from the front desk of the hotel and a bottle of water before going upstairs alone. The good thing about a small hotel like this was that one could easily stay in it, and there weren't too many procedures. There was only a simple white single bed in the small room, and there were a few small cards on the ground when he entered the room. The smell of disinfectant was a bit pungent, and the light was not bright. Obviously, it had not been changed for a long time. Lu Zixing had lived a luxurious life since he was a child. This kind of ordinary instant noodles had a strong taste of seasoning, but it made him hungry instead. He finished it quickly and even drank up the soup. Looking at the last remnants of the noodles stuck to the bottom of the bowl of instant noodles, Lu Zixing did not let it go. He directly scraped it with a fork, put it into his mouth, and chewed slowly. This careful taste seemed to be better than 100 delicacies. Lu Zixing suddenly put down everything in his hands and covered his eyes with his hands. The taste of loneliness filled his heart. He remembered the scene of killing his father with his own hands in the Lu family's mansion that night. Unconsciously, he burst into tears. For most demons who cultivated with the help of moonlight, the best time was from midnight at night. If they were more diligent, they could use it until the moon finally disappeared. On the rooftop of the building, Zhuefeng, who had learned a new technique from Zixing, increased his beastskin power by nearly 10% in just 2 or 3 days. This meager amount of beastskin power was naturally incomparable to the peak power that even Kelowna Shinryu not long ago. However, Zhuefeng knew that he had nothing to do with the demon wolf. As for the mysterious power from his father's side, it had been quiet since then. He had returned to his original form, no different from an ordinary little monster. So at this time, seeing the rapid growth of his beastskin power, he was naturally happy. Zhuefeng slowly opened his eyes and ended the night's cultivation. Although there was still an hour before the moonlight disappeared, he already felt that his body was expanding at this time. He knew that he had absorbed too much moonlight in the past few days, and he had not completely refined it into beastskin power. If he continued to absorb it, it would only be counterproductive, so he had to give up. However, Zixing was still absorbing the moonlight. The moonlight was like a silver stream, rushing towards Zixing from all directions, but the effect was several times better than Juefeng's. After 2 days of cultivation and internal adjustment during cultivation, Zixing's face had recovered its rosy color, and she could walk normally during the day. She recovered so quickly. Maybe she will leave soon? There were also some wolf-type monsters in this city, but so far, only Zixing looked about the same size as him, and she was a rare female. Zixing even had a strange attraction to him, and Juefeng subconsciously developed feelings of admiration. It was just that he had never had such an experience before, so he didn't know how to deal with it at all. Thinking that Zixing and he were just strangers who met by chance, and maybe they would part soon, he couldn't help but feel a little irritated. He was worried about gains and losses, and he couldn't say anything. At this time, Zixing had almost finished absorbing the moonlight for the night. Her consciousness had already woken up, and she naturally felt the gaze directed at her from the outside world. Her heart trembled slightly. Her current appearance was only because she was too injured and her strength had regressed, so she had shrunk to this size. She could easily read the meaning of the gaze that was looking at her. Many people in the Greedy Wolf clan were like this. Some of the warriors of the Greedy Wolf clan were outstanding, but she didn't care about them. Naturally, she wouldn't care about such a little Aardwolf monster. He was not even an adult monster yet. In her opinion, Juefeng was probably just a child, with a young heart, instinctively yearning for the opposite sex. She wouldn't stay any longer. Teaching Juefeng a high-level technique suitable for the Wolf clan was already a reward. How far this little Aardwolf could grow after this would depend on his own opportunities. However, Juefeng seemed to have a good comprehension ability. He was already familiar with this technique in only 2 days, which surprised her a little. She was just surprised in her heart, but she only treated it as a very strange individual and did not really take it to heart. There were many monster clans. Although the major clans had declined, there were still some individuals. Although their innate bloodline was not precious, they were still very talented. In the future, they might have the potential to become a great monster beast. But at most, they were only at the level of a great monster beast. However, many monsters in Kelowna only regarded the great monster beast as the pinnacle of the monster race. They regarded it as a lifelong pursuit, but they didn't know that there was a higher level above the great monster beast. For example, Kelowna and Shinryu were at a higher level. As for those with impure bloodlines, but good talents, reaching the great monster beast was the limit. There was no possibility of climbing higher. This was the unbreakable bloodline shackles of the monster race. Zixing didn't know why she thought so much at this time. She only thought that Juefeng's excellent talent was the reason why she was inexplicably interested. She exhaled slightly and finally opened her eyes. Juefeng hurriedly looked away at this time, as if he had been discovered. Zixing felt funny in her heart. This little guy didn't know that she was the young master of the noblest Greedy Wolf clan. Naturally, he would not be as cautious as the young talents in the clan when they were together. She also hadn't felt this relaxed for a long time. She couldn't help but smile slightly. Is there something on my face? Why do you keep looking at me? Well, you haven't washed your face for several days. Your face is actually a little dirty. Juefeng looked at Madame Purplestar and suddenly squeezed out such words. I don't know how to communicate with her. What can I do? I'm also desperate. Oh no, she must hate me. Chapter 681. Although Christmas Eve and Christmas Eve were imported, in the era of cultural invasion between the East and the West, most of the young people in the East almost regarded this Western festival as a traditional festival. Of course, it was a date. All the hotels had been fully booked, and the tickets for all the major cinemas had been sold out. Christmas Eve had not arrived yet, and most of the new generation were not in the mood to work. Looking at the clock on the wall, coupled with the fact that tomorrow was a holiday weekend, they believed that the work pressure that had accumulated for a week would be released well. Don't dream. Even if Christmas is here, it can't change the nature of single dogs. Work overtime for me. In the newspaper office where sub-editor Rin worked, the boss stood in front of the office with his hands on his hips, scolding a group of employees who were not in the mood to work. As a bystander, Lizzie had no pressure to be scolded by the single dogs. She was trying to destroy a new flavor of potato chips. But sub-editor Rin next to her was full of sadness, sighing, like a woman locked in the depths of a big house, watching the autumn leaves fall. For a moment, Lizzie seemed to see the landlord's concubine wearing a kimono during the Meiji Restoration 100 years ago. "Sister Rin, what's wrong with you?" "I'm going to die." Rin Xiling lay on the table. She looked like a defeated dog, as if she had been ruined countless times. She looked at Li Zi in despair and said, "This month's performance is not good. I still have 3 articles to write, and I haven't written a column. I still have to write a public account tonight. But Sister Rin, isn't working overtime the right way for you to start your daily life?" The sound of potato chips breaking in Lizzie's mouth was like the sound of Ren Xiling's glass heart breaking. She opened her eyes weakly. "Luochio asked me to have dinner tonight, saying that it's a rare holiday, and I refused. Because of this damn overtime." Lizzie blinked. "Don't you have me to accompany you?" "No, thank you." "Eat potato chips?" Lizzie blinked her eyes and was reluctant, but she still took out a piece of potato chip and fed it to Ren Xiling. Ren Xiling also opened her mouth and chewed it into pieces. Lizzie giggled and said, "It's time to work. Let me." Ren Xiling said seriously, "Let me free myself again." It was obvious that he was in the last stage of laziness and had given up on treatment long ago. Purple Star's original clothes were a bit strange, like the clothing of an ethnic minority. Going out like this would inevitably attract a lot of strange gazes. Considering this, Zhuifeng proposed to change her clothes. However, the only clothes he could find were the ones he had worn before. Was there a need to buy them? Unfortunately, the human world did not employ child labor for the time being. Without a job, the 3 meals a day basically depended on hunting or eating at Cheese's house. Zhuifeng searched the entire house and only found a few coins. Of course, there was another way for monsters to earn money quickly, and that was to use their own condensed demonic beads to exchange for money at the Elysium Bar. But although the Elysium Bar had this kind of service, for the monsters, demonic power was their foundation. Naturally, not many monsters were willing to use this service. It was already a little difficult to spend money in the bar. Wouldn't it be stupid to exchange for money in the human world? "I'm sorry, I can only find these for the time being." Zhuifeng looked at Purple Star, who had put on his clothes. "But you can rest assured that I washed it very well. 3 times. 3 times. Give me your hat for a moment." Zixing chuckled. She reached out and took off the hat from Windchaser's head, then put on her own head. Coincidentally, her long ears that couldn't be hidden for the time being were also included. Thinking that Purple Star not only wore his hat and clothes, but even the underwear inside was also his, Zhuifeng felt a sense of dryness in his mouth. "Should I not wash the clothes after changing out of them?" "Zhuifeng, Zhuifeng," Purple Star suddenly called out softly. "I'm not messing up." Zhuifeng came back to his senses. "Ah? What did you just say?" "I didn't hear it clearly." Purple Star smiled. "I said, I'm not familiar with this city. Where are you going to take me?" Zhuifeng asked subconsciously. "I can take you wherever you want to go. There's no place here that I am not familiar with." "Then, let's go there." Purple Star thought for a while, waved her hand, and pointed to a building in the center of the city. This was the tallest building in the city, and it was located in the center of the city. Zhuifeng was taken aback. He didn't understand where Purple Star wanted to go, but he didn't ask much and agreed directly. "Okay." Zhuifeng nodded, "but it is broad daylight now. Let's use the human method to go there. I'll drive you there." "Car?" Purple Star was slightly surprised. However, when she saw Zhuifeng pushing out a semi-new bicycle at this time, she opened her mouth slightly, but in the end, she didn't speak. She just smiled and said, "Then let's go." She didn't really agree to accompany Zhuifeng to go out, but it has been a few days since she was seriously injured that day. Now that she has recovered some strength to move, she naturally wanted to find news of her subordinates. On that day, because 2 wolf warriors were suddenly killed by the white-haired human woman, When she used the secret technique Greedy Wolf's Descent, she had to extract a large amount of vitality from the remaining two warriors. Although she still had some reservations, the remaining two warriors were probably seriously injured at this time. It's just that she didn't know if these two warriors were now looking for a place to heal their wounds or were also looking for the young master of Purple Star. Therefore, she agreed to Zhui Feng's invitation. As for going to the highest place in the center of the city, she naturally had other plans, but she still needed to wait until midnight. Since this Zhui Feng is acquainted with Master Long Jun, should she use him to visit Master Long Jun? Purple Star thought to herself, but she quickly dispelled this idea. The Wolf Clan was arrogant, not to mention the king of the Wolf Clan, the Greedy Wolf Clan. This time, not only did a human woman snatch the secret treasure, but as the young master, she was also seriously injured and her body degenerated. This kind of thing was really a disgrace to the name of the Greedy Wolf Clan. If it was spread out, she would be a sinner in the clan. While thinking so, Purple Star followed Zhui Feng all the way down to the roof of the building where she was staying. Zhui Feng naturally carried the bicycle all the way down. Purple Star didn't think much about it. She sat sideways at the back of the bicycle. While thinking about her future actions, she subconsciously used her right hand to support Zhui Feng's lower back and leaned forward slightly. It was just that Zhui Feng seemed to suddenly stiffen his body. So Purple Star asked curiously, "Why aren't you leaving yet?" Okay. Since Professor Chui Fo suggested using the secret method to improve magic power, whether it was Wang Yuechuan or himself, their magic power could see considerable growth every day. With the improved magic power, they could refer more to the contents of the Book of the Dead to use magic. For the two who had just come into contact with this kind of power, it was naturally something that they couldn't help but be happy about. The two were silent all day long in the development of new fields, and they were quite unaware of the passage of time. "King, there are no places like mass graves nearby." Professor Chui Fo paced in the apartment at this time with his hands behind his back. "Without a large number of Een spirit transformation, our cultivation speed will return to the previous slow. If it could be fast, it would not be slow. Anyone would be the same." Wang Yuechuan listened and nodded. After thinking for a while, he asked, "Professor, do you have any good suggestions?" "That ritual requires a lot of Een spirits." Professor Chui Fo said quickly, "The mass graves we have used in the past few days are very effective, but in fact, the number of Een spirits is not much. According to the description in the Book of the Dead, the longer the death, the better the quality of the Een spirits. These mass graves are old, and they are not in the best condition. I suggest that we go to the city's cemetery quietly." Wang Yuechuan shook his head and said, "Professor, our country uses cremation. Although it is a cemetery, most of them are empty. According to the Book of the Dead, a person will be a single Een spirit after death, but they must foster a body for a period of time before they can leave. I'm afraid the situation in the cemetery is not the best choice." Professor Chui Fo patted his head and nodded. "I have neglected this. In my country, the bodies are sent to the cemetery. And, King, why don't we go abroad before the new year?" Wang Yuechuan was silent for a while and shook his head. "It is inconvenient for me to go abroad now, but it doesn't mean that I can't go abroad in the future. I need some time to prepare. As for the improvement of magic power, if there is really no way, then let's slow down. I can also consolidate it." Professor Chui Fo was obviously unwilling to do the so-called consolidation. In his opinion, the human body had infinite potential as a container of magic power. Under such a huge container, the more magic power improvement, the better. This Wang Yuechuan seemed to be a little conservative. He shook his head and suggested abruptly, "There is another place where there should be a lot of Een spirits, and they are absolutely fresh. It is even easier for you to reach there." Wang Yuechuan frowned. "You mean the police station's morgue?" Professor Chui Fo nodded and said with blazing eyes, "The Book of the Dead mentions that the more intense the hatred, unwillingness, despair, and other emotions are born in the body, the stronger the Een spirit after death. This part is most suitable for those who died unjustly. I think there must be a lot of such dead people in that place. Indeed, the corpses in that morgue were basically not unnatural deaths. Some of them had not even been claimed for a long time. In the words of these public officials, the morgue's resentment was extremely heavy. Many people in the organization who were assigned to guard the morgue were rumored to not look good. Some retired old people were still sick. If it was because of the Een spirit, then this trip could not only improve his magic power, but he could also solve this so-called resentment so that the civilian police officers working in the morgue would not be eroded by the Een spirit. It was a win-win situation. Wang Yuechuan didn't think for too long and nodded. It was just that it was troublesome to use crystals to set up a ritual array in a morgue. However, thinking that his current magic power was just enough to cast some of the magic mentioned in the Book of the Dead, perhaps it was just the right time to experiment. If it was successful, then it would explain why Chao Yu was able to take things from the evidence room openly without anyone seeing it. King? Nothing. Wang Yuechuan shook his head slightly. I just remembered some small things. I have no problem entering the morgue with my authority. I can even bring you in. However, Professor, are you sure you want to go today? Why not? Professor Chui Fo smiled slightly. Wang Yuechuan shrugged and said indifferently, Today is Christmas Eve. For you, it should be the most important festival, right? For Chui Fo, this was equivalent to the traditional spring festival for Wang Yuechuan. Therefore, even if he knew that this place could improve his magic power, Wang Yuechuan would not touch such bad luck on such a traditional festival. It was not because of superstition, but just a little respect for tradition. What's more, that place couldn't run away, and no one would use it. Naturally, he wouldn't be impatient. Professor Chui Fo also smiled indifferently and waved his hand. King, since we got the Book of the Dead, you and I are no longer ordinary people. We are already transcendents. What's the point of this festival for us? It's more meaningful to improve our magic power. Then do as you wish. Wang Yuechuan nodded. I'll change my clothes and go out. When Wang Yuechuan entered the room, Professor Chui Fo sneered. He had accumulated enough magic power to launch a certain spell in the Book of the Dead that he had hidden. As for Wang Yuechuan, after these few magic power improvements, his trust in Chui Fo had obviously increased a lot. His vigilance was not so strong. Christmas is such an important festival. How can I not? Professor Chui Fo sneered in a low voice. I even prepared a pretty good Christmas gift for myself. Since number 18 said that the mission had failed and asked Taisetsu to play by himself, Taisetsu hadn't seen number 18. Of course, he could roughly feel number 18's location, but he felt that the big sister probably didn't want to see anyone since only one day had passed, so he simply returned to the club. Luochio didn't seem to be unhappy about the failure of this mission, but in Taisetsu's view, Luochio and the young man he met in Luo village were still the same, although they were now in a master-servant relationship. Christmas Eve? I don't know. Boss Luo was fiddling with something in the study. At this time, the maid and Taisetsu were drinking tea at this moment. Speaking of the traditional festival of the Western world, Taisetsu shook his head and said, Didn't the boss tell you? I've spent most of the last 10 years in a cell. Except for the Mid-Autumn Festival and the Spring Festival, what is there to celebrate? Not to mention Christmas. Speaking of which, you should be a foreigner, right? How do you celebrate it? Taisetsu looked at Mississippi maid curiously. Although she was drinking tea, as the exclusive servant of the master, Mississippi maid just stood from beginning to end, holding an exquisite teapot in her hand. Actually, it's almost impossible to celebrate it there. Yi smiled and said, In Russia, it's New Year's Eve. Of course, there's also Christmas, but it's different from the traditional December 25th. Taisetsu was quite interested. So strange? Tell me about it. There's a so-called red-coat Santa Claus at Christmas. As for Russia, there's actually a similar image. Yi recalled and said, but it's called Red-Coat Santa Claus and Miss Shui as an assistant to send gifts together. The Christmas tree is also called a New Year tree. Taisetsu listened to some different cultures and finally asked curiously, since it's not, why did you put so much effort into it, as if you were looking forward to it? Yu Yi said softly, because this is the first Christmas Eve that Yu Yi is accompanying the master. Damn, he was stuffed with a mouthful of dog food. Taisetsu secretly shook his head. He felt that it was more suitable for him to go out and wander. Are you talking about something happy? Luacio's voice suddenly came. He slowly walked out, but he was holding many big and small boxes in his hands. These boxes were beautifully packaged and couldn't help but look forward to it. Mississippi Maid quickly came forward and shared the burden with Luacio. Nothing, just casually chatting. Taisetsu shook his head and also helped, then asked, "Boss, where's so many gifts for?" Luacio said softly, "Of course it's for my customers." Taisetsu was stunned and asked subconsciously, "So many?" Chapter 682. When he woke up, the lights in the hotel room were not turned off yet. Lu Zixing slept like this all night. Although it was already daytime outside, and it was a rare good weather, the lights were still on in the room where all the curtains were closed. It would be brighter after all. Looking at the time, it was almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Lu Zixing didn't expect himself to be so tired that he directly missed lunchtime. At this time, he was hungry. He quickly got up and took a shower. Finally, he shaved off the fibrous roots that grew in the past few days. He couldn't change his clothes, but he thought it was good to clean himself up. The wound on his ear that was broken last night had solidified into a large piece again. Lu Zixing looked at it and shook his head. He felt that it was more suitable without the ear on this side. If he had ears, he wouldn't have been addicted to gambling all these years. Since he couldn't listen to his mother and wife's advice in the past, it was better not to have them. Now that he didn't have them, he couldn't seem to hear them anymore. He thought about what to do today. He quickly tidied himself up, put on his hat again, paid the bill, and left the hotel. The uncle who was reading the newspaper at the front desk was attentively chatting with a woman wearing a skirt and coat. Seeing that Lu Zixing was about to pay the bill, he wasn't very enthusiastic. He just asked Lu Zixing to put the money at the front desk. Lu Zixing didn't mind. He just glanced at this woman and felt that with this woman's beauty, she seemed to be worthy of the word stunning. No wonder the owner of this hotel was so eager. It was just that he used to be addicted to gambling, so he didn't care much about women, or he didn't have much interest in them. Now that his life was turned upside down, it was even more impossible to have much interest. Instead, he felt like he had seen through the world, like an outsider. He pushed the door open and walked out. He could only vaguely hear the boss still saying attentively, "Miss Blackwater, today is Christmas Eve. Are you free tonight?" Although they were going to the tallest building in the center of the city, there was still a lot of time before Purple Star's time, so she directly told Juefeng that he didn't need a rush. Before that, he could go around. She knew how this youth felt. She also saw some of the young clansmen who had just evolved into demons. Purple Star felt that as a newly born monster, one should always be free and unrestrained. Although she was optimistic about Juefeng's future, his potential had been limited. However, this did not prevent the young master of the Greedy Wolf clan from forming a good relationship with Juefeng. There were countless monks and lamas on the plateau, and the Greedy Wolf tribe had lived on the plateau for a long time, so they naturally came into contact with them. Over the years, they had also been influenced by Buddhism to a certain extent. And at the level of the Purple Star young master, who was also the tribe's priest, they naturally believed in reincarnation. Fate arises and perishes. Impermanence exists. What is this? The bicycle stopped in front of the square on one side. Seeing Juefeng coming over with 2 hot dishes, Zixing asked curiously, "Bomb the big squid. It's explosive." Windchaser gave one to Purple Star. Purple Star also saw Windchaser's little trick just now. Taking advantage of the fact that the owner of the stall was not paying attention, Windchaser quickly stole 2 servings. It seemed that he had become accustomed to this kind of thing and was very skilled at it. Purple Star shook her head, but she did not take it. She said indifferently, "You can send it back." Juefeng was startled, thinking that his behavior probably did not escape Purple Star's eyes. She was so beautiful, and she had a noble temperament. She even casually pointed out high-level techniques. "I'm afraid that she is at least from a rich clan in the demon realm. I will return the money in a few days." Juefeng's face turned red. He was at a loss, but his eyes were full of desire. Wolves are proud, remember that. Purple Star smiled lightly. Just now she took the food. It was a bit like a teacher to a student. I will double it. Zhuefeng was not the type of person who blindly felt guilty and did not know how to be free and easy. At this moment, he chuckled, but he was already eating the hot food in his hand. Purple Star smiled and said nothing. There was cause and effect. Today, Zhuefeng stole something here, and he would return it double in the future. It was a karma, so it was naturally good. This little ground wolf could understand so quickly. It seemed that he had the help of the heavens. He knew how to understand karma. Although he may not be aware of it himself, it was enough to show that his Buddhist heart was very high. Suddenly, her heart moved. Although the ground wolf bloodline was only the lowest bloodline of the wolf clan, Zhuefeng was very good at understanding cultivation techniques. This time, after she found her subordinates and went to the Palai conference, it was better to come here on the way back and bring him back to the clan to train him well. Although it was impossible for him to go further than a great demon, in today's age of Dharma ending, a great demon could be considered as the second best combat power. For a great demon clan, he was already the mainstay. It was not that the clan did not accept the lower bloodline before. Even the plateau where the Greedy Wolf clan was located now, because of the decline of the Greedy Wolf clan, there were a large number of slaves of the lower clans. Thinking about it, Purple Star suddenly asked softly, Zhuefeng, you said that you have no parents and have been crying. How long have you lived in this city? About 10 years. Zhuefeng replied without thinking. Purple Star asked, then have you ever thought about leaving this city? Zhuefeng was stunned. He raised his head and looked at Purple Star. He said blankly, leave this place? Purple Star smiled and said, I was born in the plateau. There's a big pulse there. The human government rarely manages there. In addition, there are few people there. As a demon, there are naturally fewer scruples. Naturally, it is more convenient for you to grow. Why don't you give it a try? Plateau mountains and water. When a wolf enters such an environment, it is like a dragon entering the sea. Perhaps it was just his nature to chase after this environment. When he suddenly heard Zhuefeng, he was already fascinated. He knew that Purple Star was inviting him. Although he didn't know how to communicate with the female he liked, it didn't mean that he couldn't walk. Zhuefeng shook his head in the end. Purple Star had a trace of ancient style. Zhuefeng had been struggling to talk. At this time, he muttered to himself, although the plateau is good, it is not my hometown. Naturally, there were things that made him more concerned here. Purple Star was not too disappointed. She smiled slightly and did not continue this topic. She just tasted the big bombing squid in her hand and put it down. As a wolf, she naturally did not avoid meat. It was just that this food had too many useless things added by humans, so she just tasted it. Zhuefeng, not far away, a teenager who looked like a high school student waved his arm at this moment, then walked over quickly. Beside him was another girl of similar age. Big brother. Zhuefeng stood up suddenly. It was Mo Xiaofei. Mo Xiaofei saw that he was still respectful like a little adult, so he couldn't help but laugh. I told you not to be like this. This is... She's my friend. Zhuefeng glanced at Purple Star subconsciously, but he saw that she was frowning slightly, so he did not reveal her name. Is that so? Mo Xiaofei rubbed his chin, looking at Zhuefeng with a meaningful look, and dragged out his tone. Zhuefeng hurriedly said, Big brother, it's not what you think. Mo Xiaofei spread his palms and said, I'm not thinking of anything. Xiaofei, is this the friend you often talk about? The girl next to Mo Xiaofei asked curiously at this time. Mo Xiaofei smiled and said, Yes, I recently met a few friends. I'll introduce you to them when you have time. By the way, Zhuefeng, where are you going? Zhuefeng thought for a while and finally said, I haven't decided yet. Mo Xiaofei continued to rub his chin and then glanced at the girl next to him. She was the class monitor of her class. Seeing that she just smiled knowingly, he said directly, Do you want to watch a movie together? I also have some questions for you. Zhuefeng hesitated and looked at Purple Star again. Seeing Zhuefeng in a dilemma, Purple Star said generously, You decide. Okay then. Big brother. Zhuefeng made a decision, and then his face changed slightly. I don't have money. Huh? And Mo Xiaofei laughed. It's not a big deal. Then let's go. After watching the movie, we can have a meal later. With that said, Mo Xiaofei put his arm around Zhu Feng's shoulder and walked a few steps forward. But after the meal, we will have free time. I say, Zhu Feng, no wonder I haven't seen you these days. It turns out that you're chasing a girl. No, it's not what you think. Zhu Feng still blushed. If this was not his benefactor and big brother, he would have pounced on him. Chapter 683. On the way to the cinema, Mo Xiaofei and Zhu Feng walked in front, while Zixing and the class monitor followed behind them. The class monitor was a gentle person. Zixing was the young master of the Greedy Wolf clan, so she naturally had no problem in conversing. Big brother, don't you need to cultivate today? Zhu Feng asked curiously. In the past, Mo Xiaofei basically went back to cultivate after class, but today he didn't. Instead, he went out shopping in his school uniform. Mo Xiaofei said bitterly, I asked for leave a week in advance. Otherwise, I might not be able to come out. It was said that he was guided by Kelowna Shinryu to cultivate as a student. This was probably the qualification that all the demons in the demon realm would fight for. Zhu Feng naturally thought of it, but he only felt lucky for Mo Xiaofei. Well, Lord Long is indeed a bit strict, but I haven't seen Lord Long recently. Is she okay? Long Shuo repeatedly asked Mo Xiaofei not to disclose her current situation. Mo Xiaofei knew how powerful she was, so he naturally wouldn't say much. She's okay. She went out to pick herbs. It will take some time before she comes back. I've been guided by Little Lord Long recently. Oh, Zhu Feng nodded. He knew Little Lord Long and had seen him once, but he didn't know where he came from. By the way, big brother, you just said that you have something to ask me. What is it? Mo Xiaofei took out the painting of the Wolf Warrior's soul artist from his school bag and said helplessly, Have you seen the guy on it recently? The teacher asked me to find this guy as a form of cultivation. Zhu Feng took the painting and looked at it carefully. Obviously, he would not hesitate to help Mo Xiaofei. Mo Xiaofei looked at the sky. You took it upside down. Zhu Feng, this painting is so unique. Sorry, big brother, I haven't seen it before, but I will pay more attention. Mo Xiaofei shook his head and put away the painting, saying with a smile, Well, let me know if you have any news. It doesn't matter if you don't. Of course, Mo Xiaofei had been quietly galloping in the night sky of the city these past few days. Every night, he was half-dead tired. Even after using all his abilities, he still couldn't find anyone who had anything to do with the Wolf Clan young lord in the painting. If it weren't for the two soldiers in the hospital who insisted that they could sense that the young master was in this city, Mo Xiaofei would have given up. Then, big brother, do you have any other information about this guy? What's his name? Zhu Feng asked. Mo Xiaofei pondered for a moment before he shook his head. This involved the internal affairs of the Greedy Wolf tribe. There might even be some conflicts. In his opinion, Zhu Feng was just a child. Even though he was older, it was still inappropriate for him to come into contact with such matters. I'm just following my teacher's instructions and looking for this guy. Zhu Feng had been walking in the city. Mo Xiaofei just wanted to try his luck, so he didn't take it seriously. Let's line up and buy a ticket. You guys wait here. Mo Xiaofei smiled and patted Zhu Feng on the shoulder, asking Zhu Feng to wait. Only then did Zixing have time to talk to Zhu Feng alone. She looked at Zhu Feng and frowned. Are these two humans really your friends? Zhu Feng didn't hear the faint displeasure in Zixing's words and said casually, Yes. Big brother, Mo Xiaofei, is the most respected person in my life. If it weren't for him, I would have died long ago. His life-saving grace is like my second parent. Zixing finally frowned. You mean he already knows your identity as a monster? This human? Zhu Feng said matter-of-factly. Yes, what's so strange about it? Big brother Xiaofei is also Lord Long's disciple. Sure, but don't tell anyone. Not many people know about this. Long Shuan naturally didn't acknowledge such a thing as a disciple, but in Zhu Feng's view, there seemed to be no difference between a student and a disciple. But Zixing didn't think so. What kind of existence was the Dragon King? The most powerful being in Kelowna, Shinryu, was at the top of the monster realm. He set the rules of both the human and monster realms. None of the monsters dared to disobey. Only those monsters in remote places dared to do something against the rules, but they only dared to do it secretly and didn't dare to go too far. The Dragon King's disciple. His identity was even more noble than her, young Master Tanlang. But this was clearly a human being. The Monster Clan's Dragon King accepted a human as his disciple. Even with Zixing's knowledge, she was stunned at this time. She naturally had a way to observe people's facial expressions. Zhuai Feng's words were easy to see that he wasn't lying. Although she still didn't believe it in her heart and felt that there were still many unknown mysteries, it was related to the Dragon King's private affairs, so it was not appropriate to ask. Thinking that she was the leader of a monster clan and was also a priest, she naturally had to be more cautious than ordinary monsters in the monster realm. But the Dragon King's disciple suddenly appeared. Was it not a coincidence? Speaking of which, she used the Tanlang's descent that day, and the Tanlang star appeared. How could such a big movement not attract the Dragon King's attention? Perhaps the Dragon King had already discovered her, so he sent this disciple out to investigate? It was just that she was seriously injured and had regressed to her current appearance. Tanlang was still not moving now. Even the Dragon King might not be able to find out for a while. Maybe she could contact the Dragon King's disciple in private. She didn't want to involve the Kelowna Shinryu in this matter. After all, it would damage the reputation of the Tanlang clan. But if she really met him, she could only take advantage of the situation. Phew, that was close. There were almost no seats. Mo Xiaofei and the class monitor squeezed out of the crowd and handed the tickets to Zhuai Feng. Zhuai Feng took it with one hand. Zixing, on the other hand, was a little reserved. She took it from Mo Xiaofei with both hands and said seriously, "Master Mo, thank you very much." Huh? Mo Xiaofei was taken aback. What do you mean by master? Have you learned the same thing as wind-chasing wolf? Well, let's not talk about this first. Let's go in. It's about to start. Zixing nodded. If it was a monster, they could still sense the monster power and know the depth. If it was a guy from Kelowna who practiced Taoism, he could also distinguish the opponent's Taoist power. The problem was that Mo Xiaofei didn't have any monster power or Taoist power. How could he become the Dragon King's disciple? It's impossible for others to predict what that lord will do. Zixing shook her head slightly and followed the others into the movie room silently. Speaking of which, as the young master of the Tanlang clan, although she didn't lack luxurious clothes and food and lived a carefree life, it was the first time for her to experience entertainment in the human world. By the way, brother, what movie are we watching? Pen's Spirit. Mo Xiaofei smiled and said, "It's a popular thriller recently. He committed murder, disturbing public places, creating panic, and so on. Finally, he was sentenced to death naturally and was now on probation. It was said that the aide lawyer wanted to use the prisoner's mental problem as a reason, but the prisoner took the initiative to admit it. The prisoners on probation were naturally different from the cells where ordinary prisoners lived. Most of the prisoners waiting for the death penalty tended to be irritable, emotional, or depressed, but a prisoner on death row in a certain cabin was much calmer than others. He was a blind prisoner on death row. It was said that he killed his girlfriend and hid her body at home. No one would argue with a prisoner on death row, not to mention this guy was more like a madman, because he was always alone in the cell, opening his hands and humming an unknown tune while dancing. It was as if his hand was holding a beloved woman. He was probably crazy. It was the same today. The patrolling prison guards were already used to it. The prison guards just planned to get off work early to meet their girlfriends and then spend an unforgettable night together. They wouldn't look carefully and just rushed past. Therefore, the prison guards didn't notice that there was a beautifully wrapped box on the bed of this crazy death row inmate. Gui Yushua stopped humming and smiled slightly. Then, he touched the wall and sat down by the bed. His hand seemed to have touched something. He touched it a few times. It should be something like a box, but it was a little light. He continued to explore. It looked like a packaging box, and it was still tied with a ribbon. He felt a little strange, so he shook it gently with his hand. It seemed to be empty, and there was nothing inside. So he simply opened it. He couldn't see, but if he could see, he would know that there was a flash of light when the gift box was opened. Finally, Guiyushua smelled a strong fragrance. The fragrance of eggplant with garlic sauce. It was the fragrance in his memory. Thank you, thank you. Chapter 684. Although it was indeed the first time Zixing came to the cinema of a human world to watch a movie, it did not mean that she did not know how the movie was produced. She just retained a trace of the inherent concept of the monster. If it was not necessary, she would try not to come into contact with the civilization of the human world, because it was the rise of this civilization that caused this great change in the environment, which was a major factor in the decline of the monster race today. However, not to mention the superior monster race like Zixing, even ordinary monsters rarely came to the theater, let alone a thriller that was simply child's play for the monsters. No matter how scary the movie was, could it be compared to the experience of the monsters themselves? No matter how realistic the special effects were, it could not be compared to the experience of the monsters who walked in the gap between the yin and yang. However, looking at Zhui Feng's expectant look, Zixing did not say anything. At this time, she looked at Zhui Feng with the feeling of looking at a junior, and there was also a kind of affection born from kindness. In general, it was probably a little doting from an elder to a junior. However, Zixing's attention was more on Mo Xiaofei at this time. How could an ordinary person make the Dragon King want to accept him as a disciple? She didn't know what was so special about him. It's about to start. The class monitor brought by Mo Xiaofei looked slightly nervous and expectant at this moment. Her beautiful big eyes stared at the screen without blinking, as if she didn't want to miss a minute and a second. This movie about the pen spirit was not made in China, so it was exempt from many of the local standards and regulations. A good ghost-themed movie would eventually turn into an ambiguous mystery film, and it would have to prove that the human heart was like a ghost to pass the censors of a certain government. But despite this, the content was extremely scary. It was rumored that when it was released abroad, there was news that viewers were scared to death on the spot. It became a hot topic for a while, as if there was a speculator behind it. It reminded people of another Japanese movie series that scared many people to death more than 10 years ago. From the very beginning, the entire venue was shrouded in a tense and silent atmosphere. Before this, many people had already read the movie reviews online and knew the direction of the story and the relationship between the characters. No matter how horrible the people who had seen it said it was, they would not watch it a second time. Therefore, they were already mentally prepared. But in the end, they were still pulled into a state of panic by the dubbing that appeared at the beginning. Her control of the atmosphere was quite good. Purple Star, who was watching a movie for the first time, was able to analyze the meaning of each scene and the information given by it. As the priest of the Greedy Wolf clan, she originally needed to deal with the constellations of the heavens. It was naturally easier for her to see through the essence of things. In addition, she was in the highlands, and under the influence of Buddhism, she was able to understand the relationship between cause and effect. Therefore, in Purple Star's eyes, those one-leaf descriptions were nothing special. Unconsciously, Purple Star simply gave up on analyzing the final direction of the story and simply experienced the feeling of watching a movie as a viewer. Otherwise, it would be too boring. There was very little dialogue between the characters in this movie. Most of the scenes were silent. The shooting environment was quite good. It took place in a remote village that seemed to be a paradise. The first 10 minutes or so could even be described as a landscape documentary. Knowing that a sudden rainstorm was coming, the heroine was trapped in the rented house and accidentally found the ink, paper, and inkstone in the attic. When the heroine grabbed the brush out of boredom and wrote on the rice paper pressed by the stone, a faint palm seemed to stretch out from the void, but was tightly clasped between the heroine's fingers, waving the brush with her. At this time, strange music suddenly sounded, tugging at everyone's heartstrings. However, the heroine seemed to be unaware of her palm being clasped by something, but there was a strange smile on her face. When a movie came to this point, Purple Star suddenly frowned. Her lips moved slightly, and she muttered, "This is the supporting spirit?" How can an ordinary human movie have such a demonstration of the supporting spirit technique? Looking at the pattern carved by the tip of the brush, it doesn't make sense at first glance, but when I think about it carefully, it is actually so mysterious. The more surprised she was, the more focused her eyes became, as if something was attracting her. Gradually, all her attention was attracted, as if she was being pulled out of her body without realizing it. However, she was also a sacrifice after all. At this time, even if she was seriously injured and her strength had probably regressed, there was still a warning in her soul. She had begun to recover from this kind of pull. Wake up, wake up! Zixing's gaze returned. Just as she was about to ponder about the details of this pulling force, she suddenly realized that something was wrong. At this time, she was no longer in a chair in a theater, and the surrounding environment was not dark. Instead, it was a bright and beautiful day. In front of her, there was a kind woman looking at her with an anxious expression. Purple Star's lips moved slightly, but she found that she was lying on a quilt, surrounded by wooden beams. She sat up abruptly, only to find that she was not lying on a bed, but just a thick quilt on a tatami. Next to her was a short cabinet used for women's dressing. There was a bronze mirror on it, and the figure reflected on it also showed a slightly surprised expression at this time. Purple Star frowned. The reflection on this bronze mirror was her, but it was not her original appearance. At this time, the woman next to her was even more worried. Miss Tsukiheim, are you okay? Don't scare me. Tsukiheim, Kondo Tsukiheim? A kind of information about this body suddenly emerged in Purple Star's mind. Kondo Tsukiheim, the young lady of Maple City's main family. This is the world in the movie. But how did I get involved in such a strange place? Is it just me, or does everyone in the movie theater have the same experience? Could it be related to the painting of Fuji that appeared in the movie? Wang Yuechuan was from the provincial bureau, and this city was not the provincial capital. It was just an ordinary prefecture-level city, but its economic development had always been among the best. Even so, a provincial bureau official like Wang Yuechuan, who was also a special investigator, would naturally be one level higher than him. He also had a lot of privileges. The request to enter the morgue naturally would not be blocked much. As for bringing along a foreign old man outside the system, although it was a little troublesome, it was not too difficult. After all, ordinary people would come in and out of this kind of place where the bodies of innocent people were placed for a long time, the family members or friends of the deceased who came to claim the body. Professor Chui Fo came in with Wang Yuechuan with a similar identity. Of course, it was a place of discipline after all. Even if they came in a relaxed manner, Wang Yuechuan and Professor Chui Fo were still accompanied by police officers who were responsible for guarding the morgue. Convenience. It was just a simplified operation under the program. Things that should be written in the file still needed to be written in the file. The police officer was in his 50s and was about to retire, but his hair was almost bald and his lips were slightly purple. His body did not seem to be healthy. Officer Wang, which cabinet do you want to open? The old police officer looked at Wang Yuechuan at this time and asked directly, preparing to open the refrigerator cabinet where the body was placed. Wang Yuechuan glanced at Professor Chui Fo. As new mages, these two came in and constantly transformed the nether spirits into the source of magic power through mysterious rituals. Now, they could easily sense the existence of the nether spirits. Although they couldn't observe directly without the help of the ritual circle, the familiar feeling couldn't be concealed. Furthermore, the morgue was filled with an eerie atmosphere, and the chill was suffocating. The Een spirits that remained in the morgue were definitely not something that could be compared to the ancient mass graves. Professor Chui Fo nodded at this time, looked at the old police officer, and said slowly, "Please open one." This should be Wang Yuechuan's order, but it was this strange old man. The old police officer was stunned at the moment, but when he met the strange old man's eyes, he suddenly lost his mind. His eyes gradually became empty. At this moment, Professor Chui Fo's eyes seemed to flash with starlight, but it disappeared. It was just a theory in the Book of the Dead, plus some of his own reasoning and experiments, which gave birth to a hypnotic ability. Of course, the general hypnotist needed to make a variety of preparations, both open and covert, in various arrangements. He also needed the other party's body to be completely relaxed and matched with drugs to have a chance to succeed. But these were not troublesome for people who controlled magic power. Okay. The old policeman nodded in a daze and pulled out a set of keys. He chose one and opened a cold cabinet. Then he pulled it out. A corpse wrapped in a black bag was pulled out just like that. Wisps of cold air from the freezer lingered around it. The old police officer then opened the zipper of the bag, only to see a cracked skull with a distorted face. It was probably not caused by a car accident. Professor Chui Fo glanced at it and felt a shock in his stomach. He quickly said, "Don't open it." Even if he had begun to consider himself as an extraordinaire, how could his mentality become extraordinary all of a sudden? Looking at Professor Chui Fo's unbearable appearance, Wang Yuechuan didn't say a word. "You go out. When you wake up, just remember that we didn't recognize you, so we left early in the morning." Professor Chui Fo waved his hand at this time and commanded the old police officer directly. "Also, switch out the surveillance video during the time when no one was around yesterday, and then cover the time when we were there. The time will be before 12 o'clock tonight." Tonight was Christmas Eve, and it was very lively outside. Those young officers wanted to get off work early. Unless they still had another task, such as patrolmen and traffic police who had to be on duty, the rest didn't have much mood to work, let alone pick this time to identify the corpse. After half an hour, it'll be time to get off work. Even if someone broke in to identify the corpse, they would not accept it. They had to wait until tomorrow morning. Therefore, in just one night, the two of them could do whatever they wanted in the morgue. "Let's start," Wang Yuechuan said faintly at this time. Professor Chui Fo also began to take out various crystals to fiddle with the ritual array and began to fiddle silently. As for the old police officer, after closing the door and leaving, he sat in the office outside and fell asleep directly on the table. However, at this time, a trace of black mist began to gather behind the old police officer and then gradually turned into a figure in a black robe, making a low and hoarse laugh. It was Black Soul number 18, who had failed a mission, but always enjoyed the game he had been playing. Sir Ma didn't play Minesweeper in his office, but looked at the time on the wall clock. As a devoted police officer, he hardly looked forward to getting off work as he did today. Of course, it was not like the group of young guys outside, because it was Christmas Eve, because it was the big day of the appointment. Although he did have an appointment with his wife, Madame Ma, to eat at a restaurant outside. However, Sir Ma invited his wife to dinner not because of the festival, but to celebrate something. That was, Mrs. Ma gave birth to a pearl at an old age. She actually sent a good news. The last time Sir Ma was a father was 20 years ago. He didn't expect to be able to have a child at this age. He was even more excited than when he was a father for the first time. It was just that Mrs. Ma didn't like to be publicized, so this matter wasn't widely known. She just planned to wait until her belly was big and couldn't hide it anymore. "TSK Tisk, I'm still as strong as before." Officer Ma smirked in the office alone. Calculating the time, shouldn't it be the last few days on the Bayou cruise ship during the Golden Week? Thinking of the 2 nights on the Bayou cruise ship, which was extremely firm and powerful as if it had the help of God, Sir Ma subconsciously felt his legs go soft again, and his heart still had a lingering fear. He couldn't help but rub his chin and said in a strange tone, "So, I have to thank Rinziling this brat? Forget it. Maybe I'll be blackmailed by this brat. But those oysters, where did they get them? So fierce." Just as he was letting his imagination run wild, the office door opened. It was Sir Ma's head horse, Lin Feng. "Sir Ma, I just saw Officer Wong." "What? Officer Wong? Which Officer Wong?" Ma Howd was stunned and asked subconsciously. "Wang Yuechuan." Lin Feng blinked and said, "That special envoy who looks awesome. You can't have forgotten, right? That guy." Ma Howd nodded, but since the case of the cram school last time was temporarily closed, there was almost no trace of him. He was mysterious, and no one knew what he was doing. Why did he come back at this time? Sure enough, he's single. I heard that he seemed to have gone through the formalities and then went to the morgue. Lin Feng shrugged. It seems that he also brought someone there. It's probably to claim the corpse or something. I'm not too sure. Chapter 685. As the master of this land, the Kondo family naturally had supreme power. However, in the entire Izumo country, there were many families like the Kondo family, and above them were generations of noble families and even the country's monarch. However, the head of the Kondo family, Kondo Nordsun, was also a person who worked hard. Under his management, the fief also showed signs of prosperity. It was a pity that Kondo Nordsun had no descendants. Even among all the direct blood relatives in the entire family, no male was born. How could a city lord not have a direct descendant? But there really wasn't. What could Kondo Nordsun do? He also sighed every day, feeling extremely desperate. Later, he had no choice but to listen to the advice of his retainer counselor. He adopted his brother's only daughter from his deceased brother. When this daughter grew up, she would choose a husband and give birth to a child. This was the origin of Kondo Sam. It was also something that Zixing had inquired about in the past 2 days. How should I put it? Zixing had already determined that this was the world in the movie, but unfortunately, she didn't see any introduction of this movie. Naturally, she didn't know the subsequent plot. What she knew was only some information that was given at the beginning of the movie. Even Kondo Suheim's identity at this moment was explored by herself. Her soul being dragged into this illusory world was something Purple Star had never heard of before. She only felt as if there was a pair of eyes observing her every move at all times, making it impossible for her to calm down for even a moment. If it weren't for the fact that the greedy wolf couldn't be awakened, even if she was pulled into this strange virtual world, how could she not have the slightest resistance? She just didn't know if in addition to herself, Zhuifeng, and the humans in the movie theater, as well as the disciple of the Dragon Lord, were also somewhere in this virtual world at this time, and then transformed into someone. White rice, grilled fish, miso soup, and some scattered pickles. Although the amount was small, a lot of utensils were used. Kondo Suheim's body had been weak since she was a child, and she had no strength at all. If she didn't eat something, Zixing was afraid that she wouldn't be able to walk properly. And Haruko, eat a few more servings of meat for dinner. Zixing ate and suddenly ordered the nanny who had been taking care of her. Although this was an imaginary world, the food here was not polluted at all, and the taste was not inferior to the food she had in the Highlands. Princess Ji had always been frail and sickly since she was young. She would vomit whenever she came into contact with a bit of meat. It was rare for her to have such a large increase in her appetite these past 2 days. Her complexion gradually became rosy. Aunt Chun-Zi confidently and joyfully agreed. When will father come back? Zixing put down her chopsticks and put her hands on her legs as she looked at Chun-Zi and asked slowly. She was the young master of a clan, and she was also the greedy wolf shaman. Naturally, she was impeccable in terms of bearing. Some of the customs and manners here could be seen at a glance. Not only was she able to imitate them beautifully, but she was even more noble and calm than the former Kondo Yuheim. Ever since Princess Ji woke up that day, the changes in her eyes couldn't be hidden from Chun-Zi, who had been taking care of her. Although he had some doubts in his heart, the Yun country had a strict hierarchy. How could a servant dare to question his master? Hearing this, Chun-Zi put his hands on the ground and clasped his forehead. He quickly said, "Master is patrolling the low-level villages. The return date is set around the early part of the frost month. There should be 25 or 26 days left." "Have you heard of Unripe Rice Village?" Zixing asked abruptly. "Unripe Rice Village?" Chun-Zi pondered for a moment and then replied, "It should be near the foot of Famine Mountain. I have only heard of it, but have never been there." "Well, you get ready." Zixing thought for a while and said, "Call some attendants. I will go to Famine Mountain tomorrow and look for Unripe Rice Village." This, Chun-Zi was shocked and said, "Princess Ji, you can't do that. How can you leave the city at will? I heard that there was a group of samurai retainers and deserters from the E Kingdom a month ago. They turned into refugees and rushed into the Yun country to loot everywhere. It is said that there is a powerful demon dog nearby. It is really dangerous. There is no need to say more. I have made up my mind." Zixing said in a clear voice. Do you dare to disobey my orders? Chun-Zi doesn't dare. She raised her head in horror with a look of fear on her face. Then, she lowered her head again and moved her knees on the ground. After kneeling a little, she stepped out of the door and didn't dare to raise her head. Unripe rice village is really there. Zixing muttered to herself at this time. If I want to find out why I came to this unreal land, I am afraid the only way is to find out the truth behind the Fuji. Now, though my demon beast power is gone, and my body is weak, I can only rely on the power of the Kondo family. Fortunately, it is a Princess Ji who is banned. If I become an ordinary person in the outer city, I am afraid I can't do anything. A few months later, a samurai with a long sword and a white-robed monk with a staff were chasing in the forest at this time. In the forest, a figure was rapidly leaping forward on the branches. It had a head of long white hair, long erect ears, dark green eyes, and a long tail. Zhuefeng looked back at the guys chasing behind him with some annoyance. Since he opened his eyes, he saw these guys roaring and attacking him, saying that they were asking for the demon beast so that they could exchange it for merits. As for my ass, I am not going to change my name. My name is Zhuefeng, okay? Who the hell knows who the Inuyasha you guys are asking for is? Also, the red robe on this body is really awkward. However, the strength of this body is not inferior to my previous self. Even the demon beast power seems to be a little higher. Although I don't know why I became like this while watching a movie, at least I'm still a demon beast. It's just that I changed from a wolf demon beast to a dog demon beast. If you guys chase me again, don't blame me for being rude. Zhuefeng turned his head and yelled at the samurai who roared the most fiercely. Inuyasha, Juzaburo Amakusa will take you down today. Then don't blame me for being rude. Although he had always abided by the rules of Lord Long, not to harm humans without authorization and cause chaos. In this damn place, it was not like the original place. Zhuefeng was not the kind of person who would stand up straight after being beaten. The other party was attacking him, yet he was not allowed to fight back. Was he out his mind? Soul-chasing Ironclaw. Zhuefeng suddenly turned around and waved his palm toward the samurai at the front. He flew down from the big tree. The sharp nails on his fingers had scarlet light. He directly clawed a terrible wound on the samurai's shoulder. Be careful. This half-demon beast is going to attack and show his ferocity. The only monk looked dignified at this time. He put his hands together as if he was chanting a spell. This body called Inuyasha was a little higher than his demon beast power. In the past, Zhuefeng was besieged by a group of wild demons, but he could not stop until he was dead, let alone now. In the forest, the half-demon beast who replaced him waved his claws. He did not use the long sword that was originally on his waist. He killed the group of samurai and monks who came to ask for him. After a while, they all fell to the ground with serious injuries. They could only be slaughtered. It was easy to kill these guys further, but first, he had to figure out what the hell this place was. In addition, since he was here, maybe Brother Xiaofei and Zixing would be here too. Inuyasha, kill me if you want. The samurai leader was quite stubborn. Zhuefeng frowned. He smashed the man's front teeth with a punch and lifted him up. Tell me what I ask you. If you don't tell me, I will. He thought about it and did not think of any threat. So he simply said, I will shave all your hair and eyebrows. Zhuefeng did not think about what effect it would have. Unexpectedly, the samurai's face was pale at this time. He trembled and said in horror, No, I will tell you everything. Hey, are people here afraid of shaving their heads? Where's this place? Zhuefeng was too lazy to ask and asked directly. This is Dharma Gate Mountain. Dharma Gate Mountain. Okay, thank you, uncle. It is my honor to be able to help you. Samurai Master. Wasn't it? Which of those samurai were not fierce? They would be angry if they were offended a little. Such an amiable samurai master was rare, and in such a rural place. He was probably a wandering samurai or a descendant of a samurai who had no fief of his own. Thinking about it, the tenant farmer raised his head quietly and found that the young samurai had disappeared. He could not help but feel surprised, but he didn't know that the samurai master was still silently watching him at this time, just that he was in the sky. Mo Xiaofei, touched the hairstyle that could make him feel despair. His body floated freely in the sky. He watched the uncle who had just asked for directions gradually go away. He frowned. It seems that it's time travel, the legendary soul travel. And it's the movie world of the pen spirit that I'm watching. Mo Xiaofei had superpowers, and his teacher was the true dragon of China. He had seen more monsters, and there was also the mysterious club boss. Naturally, Mo Xiaofei's ability to accept things was incomparable. Well, although my body has changed, my ability doesn't seem to be affected at all. Mo Xiaofei continued to rub his chin. In the past, using superpowers put a huge burden on the body. Although I don't have this concern later, I still feel that my body can't bear it when I use it to the limit. I don't feel anything here. Is it because this body is stronger than mine? It doesn't seem to be the reason. Mo Xiaofei was still at the stage of lacking knowledge about superpowers. He didn't know how shocking it was that he could easily whip 2 advanced werewolf warriors to the ground. I don't know what the class leader is doing now, thinking that the class leader was just an ordinary girl. Mo Xiaofei was very anxious about what kind of danger she would encounter in this strange and mysterious world, but he had no clue at this time and didn't know where to start. No, if this is really the Pen Spirits movie world, and the class leader is involved, she might go to that village. This was probably the benefit of telekinesis, the enhancement of intuition. This is Dharma Gate Mountain, so that village should be nearby. Class leader, wait for me. Boss Luo certainly wasn't the old man in red clothes mentioned by Miss Maid, and she wasn't the assistant, Miss Shui. But sending gifts to passing customers on the eve of Christmas Eve was also a bit of fun. But why do I have to do it in the end? Taisetsu silently followed behind the boss and Miss Maid. For example, when he was in the prison, he sneaked in and put the gift box in front of the death row prisoner's bed. As for the boss and the maid, they were taking a walk outside. The 2 sisters are abroad, so I'll go there later. Send those who are still in the city first. Then it's our turn. The boss and Miss Maid were discussing the gifting route. Of course, they didn't have to go through such trouble. They could send out hundreds or thousands of gifts at the same time and appear in front of the customers with just a thought. However, it would seem more sincere if you were to deliver it personally. After all, a businessman should put the customer first. The boss stopped on the street, looking at the door of a cinema nearby. Yi looked at the same direction, her neat eyebrows slightly raised. Of course, she also noticed what her master found. Luochio thought for a while, suddenly smiled, and walked directly into the cinema. Miss Maid and Taisetsu followed all the way. Finally, Boss Luo stopped in front of one of the screening rooms and pushed the door open and entered. The staff in front of the door didn't notice at all. In the dark screening room, except for the light and shadow on the huge screen and the vibration of the sound system, all the audience was silent. This was not strange. If the movie didn't have any time to pee and the audience was fully immersed in it, there would be nothing strange. It's strange. Why do I feel that these people are a bit abnormal? Taisetsu looked at the audience on the seats, finding that they were all in a daze, as if they had lost their souls. It wasn't that they were fully immersed in the movie, but that they were so quiet, as if they had no consciousness at all. They're all right, Luochio said indifferently. They were just temporarily sucked in. When the movie is over, they will naturally return to normal. They will only feel that they have watched a thrilling movie, but their memory will be a bit blurred. Inside, Taisetsu gave a start, subconsciously looking at the movie on the big screen. Boss, you mean inside the movie? Miss Maid said softly. To be exact, it's the imaginary world in the movie. Well, Master, I didn't expect to encounter the broken world fragments here. I don't know who made use of the broken world fragments to create such a feast. Feast? Luochio smiled slightly. If this movie could be continuously shown in all the cinemas in the country, it could be described as a feast. Imaginary world, the broken world fragments. Taisetsu looked at the boss on the left and Miss Maid on the right. He didn't understand, but felt it was awesome. Let's go in. At this moment, Boss Luo walked down the stairs in the cinema hall and walked toward the screen, just in time to give a gift to this customer. And there's more than one. Boss Luo's body seemed to pass through the light and shadow, and finally disappeared into the screen. Miss May followed closely. When she was about to enter, she suddenly turned back. Let's go. The channel opened by Master is about to close. Chapter 686. The clear blue sky, the fragrance of flowers, and a natural environment presented itself in front of Taisetsu's eyes. Even though the sun was high up in the sky, as long as he was under the shade of the trees, he could feel the coolness. The coolness of the breeze made Daz couldn't help but recall the summer when he was young. It was the same at that time. He didn't want to be like this now. The heat waves were rolling. If he was in the city, it was like a furnace. This was a world that had not been destroyed by modernization. But such a world was, boss, is this really the world in the movie? Even if he had become Onyx Soul, he had seen many means of the club and seen all kinds of extraordinary powers. However, the impact of such a movie world was still extremely shocking for Daz. Luochio was walking slowly in this natural world. He looked around and appeared very calm. To be precise, is the world on the other side of the window. Luochio pondered for a while and said, in fact, this is my first time here. It might not be appropriate to call it a window, but wouldn't it be better to describe it as a door? Let's call the world we are in the main world or the main world. Either is fine. The main thing is to ensure its dominant position. Then the world on this side can be described as a secondary world. This movie is the passage between the two, which is the door. Taisetsu was shocked. In other words, there are many, many different worlds? Boss, what about the world fragments you mentioned before? In theory, there is only one world. Luochio thought for a while. That was something he learned at the end of the last Golden Week, from his observation of all things when his spirit rose on the island overseas. For example, this subworld is one of the subworlds that split off from the main world, so it became a fragment of the world. This, logically speaking, if it is a fragment, then shouldn't our world be missing something? Taisetsu shook his head. But the continental plates are normal, right? This kind of division is not a physical division. Luochio frowned, as if he was discussing something. According to my current understanding, it should be a division in the time dimension. The secondary world behind this movie was cut from a certain period of history and then split. The extracted fragments would evolve on their own. To be more specific, it was similar to the division of cells. The new cells would grow on their own. Then, the new cells might be reclassified and grow again. Thus, the world is theoretically infinite, and there is no constant number that can be summed up. Taisetsu digested it for a while, and suddenly remembered that 18 said not long ago that she would take him to a place suitable for training the power of Jean-Lu. Could it be that it is not a brand new world formed by a world fragment? In other words, no matter how many of these subworlds there are, our current world is still the dominant one. Taisetsu thought for a while. Luochio said casually, if this secondary world is split from the time of our current world, then our world is indeed the main one. But who knows if our main world is split from some time of our current world? A feeling of insignificance like a drop in the ocean made Taisetsu suddenly feel a chill. Endless worlds, the long river of history, was the only route. Perhaps there is only the long river of time. Luochio walked in front. This was the last sentence Taisetsu heard in this conversation, because there was clearly a figure in front of him at this moment. The person Boss Luo walked towards. When did this guy appear here? A devilish-looking man in a suit and carrying an old leather suitcase. The man took off his hat at this time, put his hand on his chest, bent down slightly, and smiled. Dear new boss and the beautiful Miss Yu, it is a great honor for both of you to come. Hello, Mr. Erex. Boss Luo also gave a polite greeting. Erex smiled at this time and waved his hand. Under a cherry tree on the grassy hillside, a round table and chairs for tea appeared. Distinguished guest, please come here. Thank you. Luochio nodded. This is Taisetsu, one of my messengers. Taisetsu hurriedly nodded to the man, called Erex. Erex's eyes suddenly curved, which was a strange curve that humans could not achieve. At first glance, Taisetsu's heart beat inexplicably. At this time, Jean-Lu suddenly hummed, and Taisetsu's nervousness faded away. Eric smiled with a little surprise. "Boss, it seems that you have found a very good employee. Congratulations." Eric's even pulled out chairs for Boss Luo and the other two. His humble attitude was not inferior to Boss Luo's when facing customers. "Thank you, Mr. Eric's." Yi smiled slightly and sat down after Luochio sat down. She reached out and touched the table, suddenly saying, "Creation. It seems that Mr. Eric's is going to dominate this world fragment." "Thank you for your words." Eric's smiled ambiguously and began to make tea. He even made many exquisite desserts appear on the table out of thin air. "It has been a long time since we parted at the lakeside cottage." Eric sat down and said, "I miss you so much. I wonder if I've disturbed you this time, boss?" Luochio said indifferently, "I only do my business." What he meant was that no matter what Eric's did outside, the club was still the club, and it had always been the club's position. With that, he looked at Eric's again. "In addition, I'm interested this time, so I came in to have a look. After all, it's the first time for me to see such a world fragment." Since Eric's had delivered a letter for the former boss, he could probably guess when a new boss took office. In such a short time, if he didn't do it on purpose, it was not hard to guess that he didn't encounter any world fragments. It was better to admit it openly. Eric's shook his head. "Boss, as far as I know, your shop has collected countless world fragments. If you want to browse, you don't have to wait until now, right?" Luochio picked up a cookie and smiled without saying a word. It was a lot, but they were all thrown away by the former boss. He was also very helpless. What could he do? The name of this world is Yen Wuyue. Eric's didn't mind Boss Luo's silence. As one of the customers who often dealt with the former boss, he was too used to the boss's face. But the boss did have the capital to do whatever he wanted, even in the sub-world. Even if he finally succeeded in gaining control of all the rules of this sub-world, the boss of the club was still the same as him. Being able to descend to the endless world and directly gain the right to use the rules of the world, he was a wonderful existence that stood on the endless world. Good world fragment. Luochio nodded, and there was a clear vein between closing and opening his eyes. The number of true souls is not small, and the transmission of 8 million gods. I see. It evolved into a fragment of the world of gods and ghosts. I'm just lucky. Eric smiled faintly, but he was very depressed. The boss had just arrived, and with only a thought, he had basically grasped one of the most important information of this world fragment, but it was much easier than him, who had been managing it for so long. The gap between them wasn't just a little big. "Boss, are you sure you just want to visit?" Eric's still maintained his demeanor. "By the way, I'll give you a gift as a return for Christmas." Boss Luo smiled faintly, waving his hand, and the snacks on the table disappeared. "Just a small token of my appreciation." Instead, it was replaced by a beautifully wrapped box. Eric's raised his eyebrows. He created things out of nothing, but the boss erased them with a wave of his hand. Obviously, he didn't use the ability of the shop itself, but he had grown to this point. "Boss, what kind of freak did you find to inherit it?" But Eric's suddenly beamed with joy. "That's my honor. I can't wait to open this gift box." Even so, Eric's didn't mean to open it. In his opinion, this might not be inferior to Pandora's magic box, right? "Then open it." Miss Maid suddenly laughed softly. Eric's just put it away. Leave the surprise for last. "Boss, since you're here, can I buy something from you?" "Of course." Luochio nodded. Eric's smiled. "Can you help me defeat the 2 local gods in the world of Yenwue?" "Oh." Boss Luo deliberated. "Mr. Eric's said defeat? You want me to do my best?" No, it's too expensive." Eric's shook his head. "I said, help me defeat them." "Boss, you only need to help me contain one of them. The brother and sister are not my opponents separately, but they're a little better than me when they cooperate. Of course, even so, I'm willing to offer a quarter of the true soul of this fragment world as a reward." "Mr. Eric's," Yi said with a faint smile, "since there are 2 recognized owners in Yen Wuyue's world, then theoretically speaking, this fragment of the broken world is not exclusive to you. Can you really offer a quarter of it?" Although our master just took office not long ago, he can't be bullied like this. Of course. Eric's nodded. Your shop does honest business. How dare I blackmail you? This is my mortgage. If I can't offer a quarter of the true soul in the end, this is part of the compensation. With this, Eric's silently held up the old leather case that he had been carrying and put it in front of Luaccio. Miss Maid smiled slightly. It was a look that said, "At least you know how to behave." Boss Luo stared at Eric's old leather case and showed a more interested expression. If possible, this case is enough. But since it's a temporary mortgage, it's okay. A quarter of the true soul is indeed enough, even very generous. An ancient parchment scroll slowly unfolded in front of Eric's. Eric's seemed to be relieved, and his palm pressed on the contract decisively. The contract was signed. Are you going to do it now? Boss Luo put away the contract. Eric's shook his head. No hurry, I still need to make some preparations. If boss is still interested, why don't you walk around in the world of Yin Wuyue? The flow of time here is different from the main world, so it won't take long. Once I'm ready, I'll naturally inform you. I see. Luaccio nodded and curiously asked, Mr. Eric's, do you have any place to introduce? Eric's turned his eyes. How about the vicinity of Feynman Mountain? It's also the gateway of this world. Then, Luaccio stood up. Dear guest, we'll wait for your notice. The boss led Miss Maid and Taisetsu away quietly. The breeze blew the grass on the hillside, and a wave of grass came from afar. Under the cherry tree, the tables and chairs for reception had disappeared. Eric's sat alone under the tree and was carefully wiping a small marionette. The limbs and other parts of the marionette were connected to the crossplate by silk threads. With the shaking of Eric's fingers, the small marionette shook flexibly like a real person and started to talk. With a childlike voice, the small marionette laughed strangely. Eric's. It kept calling Eric's name. However, it had no life, and it was just a voice made by Eric's using ventriloquism. Mr. Eric's, is that the person who can fulfill any wish you said? A girl in kimono appeared behind Eric's at the moment when the cherry blossoms fell. She looked like a porcelain doll. The girl disdainfully said, It seems that you don't have much ability. Even though I've been hiding in the tree, you still haven't found me. Eric's didn't turn his head and said indifferently, That's because you didn't show any malice. Malice? Mr. Eric's is here. How dare you be so rude? The girl's tone seemed to be disdainful, and she shook her head. It doesn't matter, even if you do. I'm created by Mr. Eric's himself, born from a dream. I'm immortal. That's right. Eric smiled. Are you full today? The girl touched her belly and looked at Eric's with a shy face. She said softly, Too much. Then go and have a good rest. Eric's waved his hand. Only then did the young girl bow. When the cherry blossoms rolled up again, she disappeared again. Eric's glanced at that position and suddenly sighed. She's fictitious after all. She's not my companion. Even if she can create things, she can't create a true soul? Immortal? Even I can't say that I'm immortal in the face of such a great power. He lowered his head and continued to fiddle with the marionette under the crossplate. It also called his name as usual. Eric's. Princess Ug, the foot of Method Mountain is in front. Chapter 687. They were called the Father God and Mother God of the Yin Wuyue world, and they were also named after their names, Izanagi and Izanami. The two gods were born at the beginning of chaos, and they coexisted with 14 islands and 33 ancient gods' children. The last three were Amaterasu Omikami, Tsukuyami, and Susanoo. The three were in charge of this world. The 33 gods suppressed the 14 islands. The Father God and Mother God lived in the Yahadu on the first island, One Injury. In Yahadu, Izanagi and Izanami sat side by side, looking at Amaterasu Omikami, who was kneeling below through the curtain. Amaterasu, also known as the Sun Goddess, ruled Takamagara and wielded the artifact Yasakani no Magatama. At this moment, she frowned deeply. Father God, Amaterasu has been restless recently. She seems to feel a trace of misfortune. It is born somewhere in the Izumo nation. Izanagi spoke at this time, and his voice was emotionless. A disaster is about to happen. Amaterasu Amakami's face changed slightly, and she asked directly, "What is the reason?" Izanagi said indifferently, "The evil spirit is invading and wants to steal the Yin Wuyue world. Now this evil spirit has successfully stolen nearly 1/3 of this world." Amaterasu Amakami's face changed again when she heard it. The three were in charge of this world. She ruled Takamagura, Tsukuyumi governed the country of darkness, and Susanoo was the master of the ocean. However, they were all appointed by the Father God and Mother God. Although they were born as the three had unparalleled power in the sky, the inheritance of the world's rules came from the Father God and Mother God. If they lost the power of the world's rules, they were not far from the 33 ancient gods' children. Naturally, they could no longer sit in the position of the three. As for the human world, there were talented people with strong physiques and natural bravery. They could even beg 8 million gods. Thinking of the consequences after the world's rules were stolen, Amaterasu Amakami couldn't help but raise her head in shock and anger. There is such a thing. I don't know who this evil spirit is. Amaterasu will lead the gods of Takamagara to crusade against this disaster. Izanagi said indifferently, "Don't panic. The rules stolen by the evil spirit have reached the limit, and he is no match for me and Izanami. As long as Izanami and I stay in Yasun Hall, there is no possibility for the evil demon to go any further. But even so, how can Yin Wuyue's world allow this evil demon to wreak havoc? As the saying goes, how can one allow others to snore beside one's bed? Of course, it couldn't be him." Finally, Izanami slowly opened her mouth and said, "Indeed, the Yin Wuyue world is about to face a calamity. All of us should work together to get through this calamity. Therefore, the dispute between the three noble sons can be set aside." "Tensho, do you understand?" "Understood." Amaterasu Amakami hurriedly lowered his head. He knew that the father and mother were well aware of his battle with the other two, but they had been letting it go. Now that the world's calamity was right in front of them, they could no longer ignore it. Didn't that mean that the calamity this time had indeed reached a certain level of severity? "Tensho, you may leave," Izanagi said slowly at this time. "Explain the seriousness of this matter to Tsukuyumi and Susanoo as soon as possible and reach a settlement. In addition, I have sensed the source of the evil spirit's theft of Yin Wuyue's world. It is in the unripe rice village under the Mount Famen in the Izumo nation. Send a god to inquire about it." Izanagi carefully instructed some things to pay attention to before letting Amaterasu Amakami leave Yasun Hall. After a moment of silence in Yasun Hall, Izanagi's voice sounded again. "I can't predict the calamity of the world. In addition to the evil spirit, there is also an unusual strange breath. Unfortunately, it disappeared in an instant. Under the world's rules, it can't be detected again. I don't know who it is. Yin Wuyue is already at the end of the storm, but it is so sudden." Sigh. Izanagi's deep sigh sounded in the hall. Soon after, Izanami whispered softly, "I will accompany you and never leave you. This is the unripe rice village?" Mo Xiaofei rubbed his chin and looked at the words engraved on a stone tablet on this path. Since entering the world of the movie, not only was there no barrier to communication, but he could even understand the words. This reminded Mo Xiaofei of a joking internet phrase. It is indeed a universal language in the universe. Of course, complaining was just complaining. Mo Xiaofei still sorted out his mood, crossed the boundary represented by the stone tablet, and entered the unripe rice village. He broke a piece of foxtail grass from somewhere, put in his mouth, put one hand on the katana at his waist, and strode forward. He looked like a wandering samurai popular in this world. I'm a man who has watched Infinite Residence. While walking toward the faint smoke ahead, Mo Xiaofei began to recall the spoilers he had seen before watching the movie. The beginning of the movie was not in ancient times, but in modern times. The heroine in the story went crazy during the summer vacation. She came to a remote mountain village for a vacation and inadvertently picked up an ancient writing brush. After that, the heroine fell into a coma. When she woke up, she found that she had come to the unripe rice village and became another person. It seemed to be a very common movie with the theme of soul transmigration, but with the skin of a thriller. I don't know if the heroine has transmigrated or not. Mo Xiaofei muttered to himself. He naturally had no clue how to find the class monitor, Zhuai Feng, and others, let alone how to leave this world. He was even more unsure whether the class monitor and others were also involved except for himself, and whether they had changed into other people's appearances. I can't just ask everyone, "Are you the class monitor?" Mo Xiaofei couldn't help but have some lingering thoughts. Then, he finally saw a girl in coarse linen clothes, carrying a basket in front. Mo Xiaofei walked forward without saying a word. "Class monitor. Are you the class monitor?" "I'm Mo Xiaofei." "Ah, Sir Warrior, what did you say?" The girl's face was slightly red. Seeing the man dressed as a wandering warrior striding toward her, she was shocked and frightened. She was also a little restless. "Well, I'm a little hungry. Is there any place to eat nearby? Why don't we go to your house?" "Don't worry. I won't eat for free. By the way, I want to ask you something." Mo Xiaofei smiled embarrassedly, then took out a gold coin from his clothes. My house is over there." This was an era where warriors were very noble. Although he was only a wandering warrior, he was extremely powerful. Ordinary people dared not to resist when they called him sir. Even if the wandering warrior didn't take the gold coin, the girl naturally didn't dare to disobey. So, at least it's quite convenient to use this account. Mo Xiaofei thought secretly, then followed the girl named Bamboo all the way into the unripe rice village. "Customers, your dumplings." In front of a tea house on the pipeline, Boss Luo looked at the simple and slightly plump lady boss who brought out the food and took it with a smile. The lady boss and the people around the tea house seemed to turn a blind eye to the strange costumes of the three. And Sakura dumplings. The servant girl first observed Boss Luo up and down before he ate. Then, she nodded, "I roughly know the recipe. You still have the mood to see how other people make their food." Taisetsu looked at the servant girl with disdain. Since coming to this Yanwiyua world, although he knew it was safe to follow the boss, he always felt as if something was pressuring him. It was a feeling of extreme unwelcome. This feeling reminded Taisetsu of the feeling of coming to someone else's territory when he was in the underworld. "Taisetsu, you should eat some too." Boss Luo gave a skewer to Taisetsu at this time. "I'm not hungry." Taisetsu shook his head. He actually had no appetite at this moment. "That won't do," Yu Yi said softly. "If you don't eat more, you won't have the strength. It won't be good if you can't exert your strength when you have to suppress one of the two sky gods." "Oh, you're right. Eat more." Taisetsu nodded. Then he felt that something was wrong. The dumplings that he swallowed suddenly got stuck in his throat. "Wait a minute. Can't exert my strength? Suppress. Am I supposed to suppress it?" The servant girl nodded gently. "Yes, it's just a weak divine power that escaped. Do you need the master to do it personally?" "Of course you, who have Master John Liu, will do it." Although after talking to number 18, he knew that after he picked up Jean Liu and became the Black Soul Envoy, it would not be as simple as seducing the boss. He would have to fight and so on. But to confront a god right away? Isn't this cheating? Cheating my ex-cousin-in-law? Yin 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 yin.